As half of the chairs, may I call this meeting to order? How's that? Robert rules right next to me. For the next half hour, at 27 minutes or so, we'd really love to ask folks the question to share aloud, kind of our getting to know each other as we get ready to move into the official part of gathering time. The icebreaker question, as it were, is would everybody be willing to share a story about your first meaningful youth employment experience? Go ahead and get deep if you want to, humorous if you want to. And does anybody immediately have a story come to mind about your first meaningful employment opportunity? Brian Neese, is he ready? Okay, Brian.
I do. And oddly, I told this not too long ago, and I don't remember why. I grew up in Cottage Grove, south here, if anybody knows, and logging is a big deal down there, as you might be aware. And we had, and I'm not even sure what his position was at the school. He wasn't a teacher. He was just always around. But he was a guy, he helped coach basketball, he did this and that. Always had his coveralls on. He was definitely involved with forestry and that. Al Kennedy was his name. And when you were in middle school, you got the opportunity of junior high back then, but you had the opportunity that he would employ youth crews technically, and he would haul us up in the woods, and we were there to pick pine cones. And we would turn them in and we would get $5 per pine cone bucket. Great. So we're out there and I'm grabbing all these big Douglas fir pine cones, fill it up, bring it back. This is coming, tons of money. It was the little tiny pine cones we were supposed to get, not the big one. And that really defeated me big time. They were much harder to find. You needed to find a lot more of them to make your $5. But yeah, it taught me to ask questions and listen really well. But it was, of course, fun. It was just a bunch of kids out in the woods grabbing pine cones. So that was my first experience.
Okay, well, Brian has set the bar high because it's humorous and philosophical. Anybody else inspired to share?
I'll go because he was a big moneymaker. So I started picking beans. So my father was working construction on Highway 42. So at like 6 a.m, he would head to work and he would drop me and my sister off at Burke's Blue Fruit Stand, which is no longer there. And we would pick beans, but you would only get 75 cents for a 5-gallon bucket. Whoa.
Whoa.
But if you just kind of would do this, you could bluff them. Yeah, I did not make a fortune. And because mainly I was in middle school and there were boys there, so I didn't make a whole lot of money. I made a little money.
But the core takeaway is presentation matters.
I like to blur the edges a little bit about what is ethical or not.
Yeah. Absolutely.
No.
Do we have our next volunteer?
I will. I started out at 16 years old as training as a certified nurse's aide in Modoc County, California. And those were the days that even the nurse's aides were able to do a lot of things that the nurses are. Worked there with my 16-year-old friend. We made $3.10 an hour. And the old nurses thought it was a huge show to send us down to do complete bed bath for a 16-year-old boy that was broken his back. So we got down there doing the bed bath and kind of got the giggles, so we had to leave the room. But all the old nurses were laughing at us at the nurses station as we came out of the room and back up the hallway. That poor guy.
It's probably still traumatized.
Core takeaway. So we just heard from Rena and Belinda, in case folks online didn't catch the name tags. Anybody else want to volunteer?
I can go. It's not nearly as interesting as these other stories, but I started out in middle school, kind of subbing for friends' paper routes, which I thought was really fun. And then I got a paper route for myself, which was fine until I had to start trying to collect money, because you start noticing, okay, these are the people that are never home, and it's like I don't know, $2 a month or whatever. It wasn't that much,
Better off
but,
dead.
yeah, I mean, delivering papers was my first, job experience.
So you literally were the little boy and better off
I was-
for $2, like
Yeah.
that was you.
Yeah, I
Inspired
pulled out
by.
the switchblade, comb and was like, I want my $2.
Leather, like, yeah.
Not quite news.
I'm like, all right, Davey, respect.
Thank you for saving that. That made it much
It's
better.
very entertaining.
Thank you, Davey. Could we lean into somebody online that would be willing to introduce and share? Great.
Hello everyone. I'm Paula Escobedo Rambo. So my first like job or anything that had to do with like teaching or education or anything, was I was a tutor in Arlington where I grew up, for these two kiddos who had like were really, really behind in credits. And I think it was 8 months to get everything done so they could graduate on time. If not, then they would, come back and finish up. But they really, really were so like, I don't want to come back. I just want to get this done. So we just focused and started like getting things, like just checking things off and working with teachers. And, even so in Arlington, we only go to, they still do, but they only go to school Monday through Thursday. So these kiddos would do like Friday school all day. And then sometimes they would be like, Paula, would you come in on Saturday and help us? And I'm like, yeah, I don't care. And so we did that for like 8 months and just grew really close. And they graduated on time and it was just really awesome. And I don't know, it just made me like really happy for them to know that they could like do something really hard. And it was really hard. I don't think I could have done it. And it was just really fun. And it was really cool to see them succeed. And I think that kind of sparked my like, yeah, I want to teach and I want to do all these things. Cause I went to Western and everyone was like, oh, you're going to be a teacher? Because Western Oregon University always like hoops out the teachers. And I was like, no, I'm never going to teach anybody. And then I went back and got my master's in teaching. So careful what you say.
Thank you. That's wonderful. And go Wolves. Yeah. Go Wolves, go Wolves. Brian, Miranda, Aaliyah, would either of you like to? Brian, great. Thanks.
Yeah, I've got one. Just thinking back. So I grew up on a farm. So, I mean, from the time that you can walk and pack something, you're basically slave labor, right? It's expected that you're going to work. You don't get paid. That's just kind of how things go. But I remember that I was probably 5 or 6, and I finally graduated to the level of driving the feed truck. So I'm barely to where I can see over the steering wheel standing up. I have wood blocks on the pedals so that I can reach them. And so my first day doing it, I'm driving on, my dad and my granddad are on the back pitching off hay. And lo and behold, a rank old cow decides to walk right in front of the pickup and jump off, hit the pedal time to stop. So much worse than this cow putting the front end into the ditch and throwing dad and granddad off the pickup. So they hit the ground. I'm scared to death that I'm going to be in trouble. And they get up and kind of told them what happened and learned a little bit of grace on that one that day. We got it unstuck and finished feeding. So
That's impressive.
Okay, I think we should all sign on to a potential Coen Brothers script here. We put these little vignettes together, we might have a winner, right? We can fund all of Oregon University. That's awesome. Names changed to protect the identity. Anybody in the room like to share?
I can share, well, my first official job was as a Subway sandwich artist. I babysat a lot. It was a very interesting experience at 15. The people who had been there the longest, when the manager wasn't there, would go into the walk-in refrigerator and get high and leave me by myself. Run this whole sandwich like by myself. And my best friend and I worked there together, and the owner or the general manager of that franchise was like, "Oh, you guys are so amazing. Please don't go to college. You guys should just stay here and work here." And my best friend and I were like, "No, we're going to college. Thanks." Sandwich artists did not make it for restoration.
Love it. Thank you, Brooke. Anybody else in the room?
I'll go.
Okay,
I'll
thank
talk
you,
about my
Ashley.
experience with AmeriCorps. I worked at Togo's before I joined AmeriCorps when I was 18, and I was desperate to get out of Sacramento. And I joined AmeriCorps. They sent me to San Luis Obispo, the California Conservation Corps, and I show up and they put me on a spike crew, which I was a city girl, so I had no idea that that would entail going out doing backcountry for weeks at a time. And they drive us out to the middle of nowhere to hike in 6 miles with all of our gear, and there's just donkeys everywhere that have like our supplies. And I remember like freaking out and going, what did I get myself into? What is this? And then I think hiking in, I was the last person, but we spent a few weeks out there, and on the way out, I was like the second person out, but I'll never forget that experience, because what did I just get myself into? What are these donkeys for?
Thank you, Ashley. Could I lean to Miranda or Aaliyah, if either of you are ready?
I can try. Excuse me. I don't have like funny, I just have a lot of learning experiences from, my torrid past with youth workforce for my own personal stuff. I was a CNA like Belinda. That was super fun. I worked third shift. I think it was 18 years old. And my parents had decided, this is not a fun story, but maybe people laugh at the end, but my parents decided that I wasn't ready to go to college yet when I was 18. I was ready. I sought out the place that was furthest away from them within the state of Pennsylvania, and was like all ready to like bolt and get out of their house. But we had differing opinions. So I was like, okay, if you're not going to send me to college, I will go get a job. So I worked in the kitchen at a nursing home, and I guess I was promising there with my work ethic. So they offered me to go get my CNA. And I was like, this is great. This is what happens when you work all the time. So I did that. And I worked third shift, and I worked in the Alzheimer's unit at this nursing home. And it was, I think about it now, like the learning experiences. I kept I don't drink coffee. I kept a case of soda, and it exploded in my car because it was so cold outside. And third shift meant like you worked from like 7 p.m. until like 9 a.m. until somebody may show up for work the next day. I got paid $6 an hour. And the Alzheimer's unit, everybody was pretty restless all night, right? So I talked to people. I helped people get redressed after, they walked around naked for a while. I gave them snacks and stuff. And then we had, I'm trying to think of what year it was, because those of you that know football would probably even remember the teams that were playing, but it was probably like January of 1995. And we had really bad weather in Pennsylvania. I'd been working like forever and ever, hadn't slept for weeks. And people weren't showing up for work. So I had to cover both the Alzheimer's unit and the hospice unit. And that night we had like 6 people die, and the whole thing was crazy. And again, it's not a funny story, but also it was like I have got to get out of this job story. And I was like, $6 an hour is not enough for me to work all the time, not sleep, and have to deal with dead people all night. So yeah, so that's my not funny story about learning lessons. And as you can see, I am not in the medical field now. So that was probably the biggest takeaway for me. Thanks for the inspiration, Belinda. We were in this wild time together.
Miranda, I don't know what your career trajectory looks like, but OEM is looking for a fatality manager.
No.
No thanks, Jim. People were always like, oh, have you ever seen a dead person? I was like, I've seen them all. I'm good. Thank you. I did that as an 18-year-old girl, and I was like, oh, this is too much. No, thanks. Yeah.
Awesome.
Super traumatizing. Yeah.
Rudy Ann, we're sharing first career experiences as youth. If either you or Leah would like to jump in, or somebody in the room that wants to volunteer and share, we've got another 12 minutes. I see Aaliyah coming online.
It took me a second to think of one, so I had to bide my time here for a second. I don't know if it's a funny story, but I'd be happy to tell you about how I joined the workforce. When I was a kid, my dad was a newspaper delivery driver. So he was the kind of guy who would go out in the middle of the night and grab all the newspapers for all the gas stations and grocery stores and all of the different places. And he would go out in the middle of the night and deliver them. My dad was a penny pincher, so he didn't want to do it himself. He wanted to have our help. So at age 14, my dad was like, hey, you're going to come help deliver newspapers in the middle of the night with me. And I was like, no, I am not. That sounds not fun. So at age 14, I went down to our local elementary school and I said, hey, will you hire me? And so I got a job at 14 as a school district sweeper after school so that I could come up with an excuse for my dad as to why I couldn't deliver newspapers.
That is genius.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Next up, who'd like to go? Who's left?
I know.
Digits up,
Yeah,
okay.
Digit McCracken. I love this prompt, by the way, and this is good. I grew up on a ranch, and I'm gonna say I was probably around 10 years old, and my dad, this was my first paying job. As Brian said, you did lots of jobs and you probably didn't get paid, but I remember he told me that if I wanted to, he'd pay me for trapping gophers. And I'm like, heck yeah. So I had to buy all my own traps, which were like $3.75 a piece. And then I had this plan to, make enough money to pay for those. Well, you got 50 cents a gopher. To do this, you need willow sticks with ribbon tied on them so you can find your traps in the field. You need your traps, you need a shovel, and you need a pocket knife. And you need a pocket knife because the way that you get paid is you take all the tails to your den, and then we count the tails together, and then that's how you get paid. So I had a 5-gallon bucket with these supplies in it, and then you could pack your shovel. So I kept the tails in a quart jar, and I remember vividly, dumping them all out. I couldn't do it in the house. I don't know why, but we dump them out on the outside and we count them, and then I'd get paid, and it was awesome. But one time I remember I was horrified when I did not bring my bucket in where I should have, and our dog got into all my tails and ate what I had collected. And I remember my dad would not pay me because, how many tails did you have? I don't know. I probably had at least 20, but that didn't work. At least 20 didn't work. I didn't but I learned an important lesson to not leave your bucket out where you can't see it. Yeah. And I did not get rich doing that, and I did not work in pest control.
We either have the next year of South Park episodes.
Yeah.
or next great graphic novel going on. I just, like, a kid on a donkey with a switchblade comb coming up on a truck in a ditch with grandpa and dad. It's all happening, it's all coming together. And Aaliyah coming behind sweeping. Oh, man, my dog ate the tail.
Lessons learned.
That's awesome. Okay. Who'd like to go?
Guess I'll go. Yeah, my first job was, I was 19 years old and I got a job at Fred Meyer. And I had just come off a year of following graduation from high school. I didn't go to college and I wasn't doing a job or a traditional one. So it was kind of my first time back, actually kind of like in community and everything. So I was eager, I was excited to get to talk to new coworkers. I was excited to get to know my management. Super customer facing job. So I was excited to talk to all kinds of different people. There was one coworker who I avoided at all costs though, and I was just a little intimidated. And I heard through the grapevine that they thought I was kind of a jerk because I would come up and say hi to someone they'd start walking over and I would just kind of turn around. And walk another way. And then one time in a break room, it was just me and that person. We sat down, got to talk a little bit, and I guess I would just say, fast forward 10 years, we have 2 kids in a house together. Just engage with your.
Oh, my God. This is like Love Actually. Job experience version.
I mean, I also met my husband at work, but I like asked him to coffee every day for 2 weeks before we figured out I liked it. So
You're the other end of what I was doing.
all of his friends are like, pretty sure she likes me. She just really loves coffee. Also like you, but.
Okay, I think you need to pitch that to Fred Myers.
You
Come work for us. You'll,
Love connection.
Rudy Ann, if you want to jump in on this, just let us know anytime. We'll watch the chat. And then, not everybody has to go. The door is still open. Does anybody else want to share?
I'll share. Sorry that I'm on the ground, but I'd like to be here. My first job was at Papa Murphy's, and I actually just had a sudden realization like 6 months ago, because I hated that job. But I worked with all my friends. Like the boss, the person in charge, was like a friend that was a year older than me. There was just a bunch of us young, like 14, 15, 16-year-olds running a pizza shop. And I was like,
They're still like that.
yeah. No, like it wasn't a healthy place for me. And I was like stressed out all the time. And I had just met up with a girlfriend in Bend this last summer, and she's like, I loved that job. And I was like, I hated that job. She's like, well, we were all like doing drugs and you were the only one working. I'm like, that sucks. Like, what were you doing that? So I was so busy. She's like, oh yeah, we had a good time. I'm like, shoot. So don't do drugs. And first in, first out in your supplies.
All right, the door is still open.
I'll go. My story is very similar to Brian's and Digits. I grew up in the family community of farming, and so I was voluntold a lot in my earlier years. So I rolled and did a lot of hay bale work as a young kid. Also learned to drive there, but was blessed with hay allergies, so I got out of that gig pretty quick. I got to learn to drive at a very young age. But that's not the story. I just wanted to share that there's a lot of interesting similarities in our stories. At 14, that was my first official job. I was a meter reader out in the country. So I got to drive around. Well, I didn't drive around. My dad drove around. I got paid and he drove me around. We rode in the back of the truck, hopped out, and I think we got like $60 a month to do this. But the key was you had to learn where all the neighborhood dogs were. And you had to time it because you had to throw the dog biscuit, run to find the meter, hope it was clean or not infested with dirt or mice, and read it accurately before the dog got back to you. So it was an interesting game of cat and mouse out there. It was a very young, early learning lesson of that quickness pays, I guess. At that age.
For a second, I thought you meant parking meters.
No, water meters. Yeah, water meters.
Do we agree that the young people nowadays have nothing on us? Job experiences.
None of them would work.
Yeah.
I don't know about your cherry pick. I don't know why not.
Down to a final few.
I'll go, Jim.
Okay.
So my very first job would have been on our small farm at home. And it's over in Eastern Oregon, and we had alfalfa, and we'd have to irrigate it. And so it's called changing the water. You change it either every 24 hours or every 12 hours. And so my brother and I, we were put in charge of it. I was like 10 or 11. And then my friend called, Tim Eddy, and Tim said, hey, you want to go to the movies? I'm like, I don't know, I have to change water. So I asked my dad, I says, Dad, can I go to the movie with Tim? And I'm supposed to change the water. And he's like, well, then who would change it? I don't know. Would you change it? He's like, well, I guess somebody's got to change it. I'm like, well, I don't know what to do. He says, well, you do what you think's right. I didn't go to the movies with Tim. That's my first friend. My lesson on that.
What movie did you see?
I don't even remember.
It wasn't worth it.
Long time ago.
Can we use that, do what you think is right with the folks that we supervise? Is that?
That's used a lot.
That's awesome.
I guess everyone was saying that.
Sure, no, I'm happy to share real quick. Similar to like Belinda and Miranda, I got my first job kind of in healthcare. I was 14, 15. I was volunteering at what was called a senior center back in the day, or nursing home. And it was winter, we had a big old ice storm, and my mom was working there as well. And she's like, we gotta go. No one can get in to take care of everybody. So we walked about 2 miles, both uphill both ways, in the snow in Oregon. But yes, we walked in because we couldn't, my mom doesn't drive in the snow. And walked in. But again, volunteering, they're like, well, you actually can't come in if you're a volunteer. And I'm like, oh, well, okay, I'll just go home. They're like, no, actually, we'll hire you. We'll hire you right now. So now you're hired. I'm like, great. That was my first job. I'm just like, just show up in a snowstorm and they'll hire you. But it was like similar to Belinda. It was very interesting walking in on residents. I was a transport aide, so I would deliver newspapers like at 6 a.m. or 5:30 in the morning. All matter of undress with different residents, but probably one of my fondest memories is helping this older gentleman named Naz, who was blind, and he had really bad swelling in his legs, and so I would take his socks on and off, and I would rub his feet, and he would touch my face, and he's like, well, he asked permission, like, can I touch your face? And I was like, sure, I don't care, you're just a weird old man, but you're super nice. And so like he would touch his face, but then afterwards, I didn't realize he would draw me. And so he drew a picture of me after that, and he gave it to my mother. And my mom was just like, he absolutely got you from like touching your face. And so I was the only one that helped him that way. And so he told his family about me. Like, it was just all those things, like just taking that extra moment. So I think that was my first introduction of just like, don't just, because I could have just like wheeled him in and just like left him close the door, but like making sure that he was comfortable and he was safe. He was 92. And so it was just taking that extra moment, and that it really meant a lot to him, and it just took a couple of minutes for me. So that was my first.
Taking the extra minute. Beautiful. Yeah. It's wonderful. I got tears in my eyes from laughing and from that. Well, we're out of time. Rudy Ann, would you like to share?
Yeah, that actually was so perfect because I can build off that. Thank you for that beautiful story, and what a great prompt. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yeah, you bet.
So my first job, so my mom used to work as a CNA in a nursing center for elderly folks, and they ended up needing a receptionist on the weekends, and so I was either 14 or 15 years old when I landed the job on the weekends working in this nursing center. And I just remember I used to bring a book, right? Because it's really slow on the weekends, but families would be coming in and out all the time. And it ended up I never needed a book because the residents would all come and just sit with me, and like one or two would come in and out. And I learned that in that moment to listen to their stories, right? Just the stories of their lives, whether it was a war story or a family event or whatever. I mean, but I think it was also the time where I was really introduced to also loss, because some of these folks, would transition. And so, but I think, yeah, after that, my whole world as far as jobs went was little odd jobs until I jumped into education when I was like 20. So that's
Lovely.
my first. It's nothing funny, but I'm building off the fact that we were just talking about elderly folks, and that there's a special place in my heart for my elders. So
That's beautifully poignant. Thank you, Rudy Ann. I will tell you my takeaway on my experience was work hard and good things will happen. 14 years old. I should say, everything I'm about to share, I think the what do they call that rule that you can't be?
Statute of
Yeah,
limitations.
statute. So, Daryl Crossler is not with us anymore, so it would be, you know, we don't want to tarnish the name of a man whose name is on a building in Salem Kaiser Schools now. He was the principal of my middle school. My dad and mom both worked in the school district, and he put the all call out to kids of school district employees that wanted to work on a job crew at the middle school. And he wanted to beautify the property. There was no district money really taking care of facilities and stuff. So he's like, okay, I'm going to teach kids some job skills and also end up with a more beautiful campus. And he wanted to get a sprinkler system put in at Judson Middle School. So 8 of us showed up on the first day, steel-toed boots, work gloves, change of shirt, and a lunch. And my best friend and I, Ken Rodley, showed up, and 6 others. And all we had were shovels and chalk marks and paint marks on the thing. It was dig a ditch, just start digging a ditch, dig a ditch. We're going to put in sprinkler systems. We dug and dug and dug. And Ken and I were tenacious. We were not going to stop, right? Our dads made it very clear, come home tired. And Daryl Crossler said, you know, work hard and good things will happen. Well, 2 kids were out by lunchtime. 3 more didn't come back the next morning. So 3 of us show up the next day, tired, blisters, gloves, boots, lunch ready to go. He's like, you can throw your lunches away. I got lunch the rest of the summer. And follow me. And we go around the building. There's a bobcat, there's a backhoe, there's a ditch witch. And he's like, all right, there's the field. You take that one, you take that one, you take that one, go play. You're gonna switch in half an hour. You're gonna switch in half an hour.
That's cool.
You have 2 hours to learn how to run these pieces of equipment. You can dig any hole you want to. There's no wires, there's no anything in the ground. He goes, but you better be good at these in 2 hours because we're gonna put in a sprinkler system. And he goes, 3 people with the right equipment are a lot better than 8 people with a bad attitude.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that.
So, they've since named the middle school, but we broke every OSHA. Like, oh my God, not to do with
Yeah, I mean, just go figure it out.
Yeah.
In and itself.
Yeah, and I was so excited. I came home that first paycheck at $1.85 an hour. I was like, yeah, I'm winning it. Yeah. So thank you, everybody, for participating in that. All right, I'm gonna contact my friends and see if we can't make a movie. So I think our very next item would be adopting the October 10 meeting minutes. I hope everybody had a chance. Ashley, do you wanna take us into does anybody need a big breath for transition or just plug right away? Okay, thank you. And folks online, please, we've got we can see you really well in the room. You're right here at the end of the table, so it feels like you're a part of the circle. Throw a hand up, just enter in and start talking, and we'll please consider that you're in the room with us. And I'll be careful to look up and make sure we're checking. Thank you, Miranda. Have folks had a chance to read, and can I have a call in terms of the adoption of the October 10 meeting minutes? Would you like to make a motion to accept?
So moved.
A second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor of adopting the October 10 meeting minutes, say aye.
Bye.
Who's up on screen or an eye out loud?
Aye.
Great, okay. They shall be deemed adopted. And I believe we're at quorum, right? Ashley,
We are at quorum.
all right, good shape there, okay. We have no persons present in the room for public comment unless I'm missing something.
No public comment.
No public comment. Which means I think we get to move very quickly. Doug, can we take just a second? Do you want to have a word or two of welcoming and greeting and thoughts for the day? This is unplanned.
You know, one day I will figure you out, Jim. I'm gonna tell a story about what I learned at my job working with Jim. It's always have one in your pocket because you never know when he's gonna call. What would you like to hear, Jim?
What do you have for goals for us? We are coming in big chunks of time and focused chunks of time, but you're doing this daily for us, with us, and on our behalf. So what would you like us to kind of have at the front of our mind as we're gathered today?
I think really, today you'll get a better understanding of one of our programs, our longest standing program. I think that's important. We're gonna have discussions around the data that we do collect. The data, you'll be able to see current data I mean, what we've been able to collect over the last year. But we'll start those conversations. We've got a facilitator coming in, Tiffany, who will be helping lead us through those, but can really talk about what does that mean moving forward, and then rolling kind of into the strategic planning piece and the funding stability, sustainability piece. So I think those were the things that were kind of identified at the first few meetings. And so they've, I don't want to say exploded, but they've been brought to the forefront, and that's why, I'll put them on the agenda for here. I might be just really quickly too. No, I'll wait. They'll get up there trying to do it, but, yeah. I really appreciate it. I mean, I know people have a lot going on in their lives, and I know that the weather is crappy, some places in the state today, so we do appreciate everybody making the effort to come up here. And here we go. I mean, we're gonna get ready for a legislative session and see where we go, which is kind of exciting and scary. And for those of you who've not done that before, it's a roller coaster. And
Understatement.
yeah. I will announce too, just real quickly, that we had another person turn in an application to the governor to be on this board for the remaining last seat. And it looks like that will go through. So hopefully by the end of this month, we'll have a full board.
Yeah.
So that's good.
I've got great work doing that, and the entire staff, Ashton, the whole crew, thank you for all of that support. Really quick, just general, any open questions, concerns, thoughts, online in the room before Brooke leads us into the, agenda? Okay, Doug, thank you. All right, to Brooke.
Okay, I am not seeing anybody for public comment, and I don't think there's anybody online. No, okay. Okay, so then we are going to move on to a presentation about the Oregon Youth Corps.
Okay.
Good. Bless you. Bless you.
Yes, for those that are here in the room, there are slides in your packet of what the presentation will be, but we'll also have that up on screen.
One second. These people not see it though. Let me switch this. Everybody, one second.
You got an expert on the line. You got to do this. That's
Use your hand.
So when you get to that, you just go one hand in your side.
Yeah, I know. Have you heard of it? Please tell me, the sprinkler dams and the lawnmower and all these things.
I do this.
You don't? Stop it.
There were logs.
No, stop it. There's a second
We good, Ashley?
We are good to
I
go.
used the 2-inch.
Okay.
I know the 3-inch ones, but they're pretty much. And he said when he was a kid, his dad was put his butt on them because they're bigger than your hand to get the same. He put his butt on your to start.
You got a ball. That's very effective.
That's very easy.
Gentlemen. So just a brief introduction to and a reminder of folks who may be familiar with Oregon Youth Corps, but Oregon Youth Corps is a program that is coming up on its 40th year of anniversary in statute. At the end of this next biennium, we'll be celebrating that 40 years together. The past of this program is very storied, very impactful, has had a profound impact on a lot of young folks all throughout the state of Oregon. And it's, as we kind of move through this slide deck, we'll take a look a little bit about what's been happening this last year, what we're planning for this upcoming year, take a look a little bit around what the budget looks like moving forward and some of the considerations that we're also gonna approach. But it's not gonna be a full in-depth, it's more to create some curiosity, interest, and a little bit of understanding of what's currently happening in the program. So the primary purpose really is called out in three basic areas. Really, how do we create access? And the language in our statute is for disadvantaged and at-risk youth, but how do we create access for young folks who need opportunities throughout the state, provide work opportunities that allow for public benefit through a stewardship mindset? And then also, what do we do to help build the work ethic in some of these young folks and teach them the job skills? So in that mindset, the program is actually fairly flexible in its approach, which allows for a lot of individual opportunities and communities to reach out to the youth in that community, and also for identifying community issues and needs and projects that really reflect what is most impactful in that space. The primary goal is really just to have a program opportunity available in all 36 counties. Statutorily, we have a program called the Community Stewardship Corps, and that one really lends itself to an educational attainment opportunity for young folks to engage in academic learning and credits, but based through work-based learning experiences. And then there's the intent of the statute, which is paid on job training for young folks. And so it's really hard to balance a large portfolio with that across the whole state. So this is a very hands-on program for implementation, but very flexible. Over this last year, this program has actually seen an influx of funding through a variety of one-time funds, which is great. So you'll see that this is really one of the peak years we've ever had at Oregon Youth Corps, serving over 1,300 youth, $3 million out the door in grant funds spent, 146 zip codes, 501 community partnerships amongst the grantees that we serve, 285,000 hours of work-based learning experience, which roughly equates to 200 hours per youth. And then a lot of academic credits, over 1,000 high school or post-secondary credits earned by participants in the program. So the program, as far as hitting statutory alignment, is right there. It's a really great and powerful program, but this is some of the things that we've just seen in this last year. So who are we serving? This is fairly consistent data. We're starting to see some shifts in these numbers, not large shifts, but small shifts. When you have a large portfolio of different opportunities, these numbers are very historically aligned, but we are starting to see more female representation, especially now that we have started collecting data around non-binary participants. That number has really shifted the opportunities where folks are starting to see their alignment. Although we predominantly see a lot of these folks coming in at their first job opportunities, you're seeing a lot of folks in that 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old range. The very same stories you just shared here are some of the stories that are happening out there in the field. And this number is hold true for quite a long time. The amount of representation that we're also starting to see with communities of color, we're really starting to see a larger number of American Indian, Alaska Native participants, Hispanic and Latino, and our multiracial category has actually shot up this year. It's usually around 1 or 2%, and that number has driven up a little bit in this last year. And then this is a relatively new category that we just started collecting in 2022. How are we supporting youth with various lived experiences? And so what you're seeing is this program hits a lot of rural and frontier community participants throughout the state. A lot of folks with a skills gap and experiencing economic hardship. One of the things I want to call out though is when you look at this list, each participant comes in with a variety of lived experiences, but it's about 3 different lived experiences per participant that we're seeing in these categories. So programs are supporting folks with a lot of background and having to figure out what that means to best support that individual. These numbers are very historically accurate as far as the number of dollars going up is higher than we've ever been. But basically, 2 out of every $3 goes towards wages. A lot of it is hitting youth. Over 50% of that is paid wages. And then about a third of the programming cost goes to support all the other functionalities to help support youth programs and organizations. The number on the right, the total program cost, though, one of the things I want to reflect there, that's not a mandatory ask that we ask of programs. That's a voluntary thing that they do provide us. This is the first time, though, we've ever seen numbers where our program is supporting that large of a percentage of the overall program cost. Typically, we're around that 20 to 30% because our budget hasn't really changed, and this has really impacted over the last couple of years our ability to better support programs with the funding that we've had. This is the number that really is kind of an eye-opener. In 2021, we just came out of COVID. We were on the brink of shutting this program down. The funding came in through a funding device called the amusement device tax, which was an excise tax on the lottery machines in restaurants. And if you remember what happened in COVID, they weren't open. And so if they weren't open, we weren't collecting money. We had no money. Coming into 2021, though, a couple of things happened. Well, there was the pandemic money that came in from the federal level. There was a student summer enrichment program fund that was launched. We were able to grab some of that money, but it was one time. And so we saw life back in the program, but the true lifesaver was when the Oregon Youth Employment Program came through. And we were able to secure through Rule 30% of that funds to keep this program alive and well. And so that is the basis of our funding now. The amusement device tax is volatile. It goes up and down, but it doesn't ever really truly increase to a high level. In 2023-25, which is in the biennium we're in now, we saw a $2.5 million one-time investment through the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund. We were able to leverage that as a one-time opportunity into our grant agreements. And this is about as close as we've ever been to truly funding the current intent of this program model. Unfortunately, that ran out in 2024 of this June. And so we were able to leverage whatever funds that we have left to kind of keep those grants going at the size they are now, and also reserve some of our flexible funding to move into this next biennium, because this next biennium is the first dose of reality our programs are going to see again of what their financial future ultimately looks like. We went from a $6 million budget this year to this upcoming biennium nearly in half, but thanks in part to about $1 million we were about to save, we were able to cushion that below this biennium. But in 2027, 2029, if things do not change and we do not see a further investment and this model stays as it is, we're looking at $3 million. And that means 36 counties times 2 divided by 3 million is what we're putting out there, which is back to where we were back pre-COVID. So this is one of those programs that highly impactful. People want to invest, but not in the long term, it seems. So this is one of the things, how do we figure out structure, or what does our future ultimately look like with this program?
So all state funding, no federal funding.
At this point in this next biennium, the only federal funding we have is a couple $100,000 in a BLM grant that's for a special initiative. And that's for our broader portfolio than just Oregon Youth Corps. So how do we plan? What do we do and how do we bring programs into this? So right now we have a current open RFA for programs to come in and apply for the funding in 2025, 2027. And we have it open for the 2 types of grant agreements that we put out: the service learning education, which is the education focused portion of our programming, and then the on-the-job training grants. We'll know very quickly next week what the awards will ultimately look like. If that becomes competitive, then we'll look at what that means for evaluating grants. And if not, we'll do a staff review that goes out. But how do new programs find their way into this? This is a hard program because July 1 is the start of our biennium. And for programs to start without any current opportunities, they're learning on the fly. And that is not always the best way to bring on new organizations. So this is a way that we help cushion new programs to come into our organization to lead crew base in a meaningful, impactful way. So we provide an opportunity for programs to learn with our staff and create all of the surrounding aspects to help them be best prepared to implement day one if they want to, as they come open. So we do have some priority counties that we do not currently have opportunities in. So if you know anybody in Clatsop, Columbia, Morrow, Umatilla, or Yamhill that would have interest in implementing a program grant, to reach out to us. We'll be launching that probably in this coming spring or summer for planning grant opportunities to help support new organizations in. Next. So this is the unique opportunity that we've found ourselves in conversation that Oregon Youth Corps had a goal of 36 grants across all the different counties and with each of the 9 federally recognized tribal sovereign nations in Oregon. But one of the challenges that we had with that is tribes really were looking at this as a opportunity in some cases and a barrier in others. And so when we looked at the conversation of how do we want to work with tribes, it wasn't through grants. And so we decided that our best path forward was to invest in our partnerships at a state to government level relationship, which meant we're removing you from the grant process, the competitive aspect. If you want to apply, that's great, but we want to partner with you and we want to frame this using your tribal strategies that are most relevant and impactful in a way that isn't beholden to grant strategies or the criteria that comes with that. And so with that, we stopped in June of 2024 and have launched 5 intergovernmental agreements now with the tribes listed up there, which are the Coos, Lower Umpqua, and Siuslaw, the Grand Ronde, the Umatilla Indian Reservation, Warm Springs, and Coquille. We have had initial conversations with all 9. And as we prepare to move into this next biennium, we're doing the agreement work in advance so they're ready to go as best as possible by July 1st. But with that, we're taking a large chunk of our grant funding and dedicating that, which shrinks our pot ultimately, but is the right thing to do is to invest in our tribal partners and our strategies that they provide in the table. So with that, we're looking at how do we leverage opportunities if the legislature doesn't have a path to invest in that, which means we're starting to look at our complementary organizations and agencies across the board to see how do we align, how do we reduce government processes, and create the most impact for the audience that they have and working serving their youth. And so tomorrow we'll be making a larger announcement at the government to government meeting to introduce this partnership. So wait till tomorrow and you'll hear who that agency is, but if you know who that might be, then you're probably right on with that. So
Jeremy, so is it 60 per biennium?
It's 60 per biennium, yeah. Yeah, I'd love to make it more. At this point, though, this is what we have to offer, and it's a great opportunity for those programs, especially because the predominant message is they're grant funded. And this is a way of ensuring that we have sustainable funding as we move forward, at least at an introductory level. So that is Oregon Youth Corps at its current state. It's Ashley, if you want to kick to the next slide. This program for years has been around, and now we have a complementary package to really help support youth workforce. We're no longer the only voice in our agency. We have peers in this work. We have multiple organizations to lift us up and help support a broader portfolio. But when we start looking at this is the introductory part of a lot of young folks' career start, and it hits on all of the different things that I think we all talk about and want to see. And it's a great program to administer. It's a lot of work, but it's super rewarding. And behind you, there's a handful of hats that we bring out to the field. So tomorrow, if you want to bring one of those with you, there are some in the back for you all to take with you today. So I am open for questions, comments, or concerns, or thoughts or ponderings, whatever you want to throw out there. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of today's reality of what's going on with this program. And happy to share more in depth in any particular area as questions come up or allows.
A question, but for others to have the opportunity to ask questions.
Are you part of the core network?
Not specifically, not as a member, but we have attended their larger annual gathering. And we do reference their materials and I'm monitoring their stuff, yeah.
A lot more of our providers, the grantees are the core members, are part of the core network themselves rather than the state.
Jeremy, how many organizations receive grants?
It fluctuates by the biennium, but right now it's around 30. It's plus or minus 2 by the year, it seems. And that doesn't include tribes. That's typically what we look at.
I'll have the question in the chat. Paula, if you want to ask your question, we're ready for you.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'll turn my camera back on. My question is, so, and this might be a silly one, I don't know, but so we like with some of that, this is the one that we partner with the Forest Service, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is it only for the Forest Service or is there a way to like partner with like ODOT and stuff like that?
The answer to that is it is up to you at the local organizational level to define public benefit, but typically that work is versed in natural resource conservation, community stewardship, cultural or historic. Those are the things that are called out in our statute. So if you can figure out what that alignment ultimately looks like, your partnerships can be widely create a wide swath.
Okay. Okay, that's good to know. Okay, thanks.
What kind of agreement?
What's that?
What kind of Forest Service agreement?
Oh, their specific agreement at Nextdoor is they are working with Forest Service as a partner to provide work projects. So they're working in Columbia Gorge. And so that's what we don't mandate agreements in place, but what we're looking at is what sort of partnerships do you have that provide work opportunities that's for public benefit projects.
Can organizations have a IGA, intergovernmental agreement?
Potentially, like public governments. So public government institutions.
Could a nonprofit have an IGA?
I don't know. That would be some question I'd have to ask our procurement department. I haven't seen one in my work yet, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I just would have to know more on that.
Counties could have one.
Counties could have one, school districts can have one, government entities where there's a government to government relationship. So that there's quasi-governmental agencies, and that's why I'm hesitant to answer based on your organization.
Right.
So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you collect any data on the students that have gone through the program and then, how they're utilizing their skills or where they're getting employed or how it ties back to the program at all?
Yeah, so the beautiful aspect and the hard challenge of the aspect of this program is we collect information of the immediate time. And so we have names, we have permissions in place to ask for later on, but we do not impose that on the organization to track. And it's a cost benefit analysis at this point for us, because when you have a $40,000 grant and if you're spending all that time in administration, you don't necessarily have the investment into the youth. And that it's one of those things, if there was more funds, we could look at things differently. But at this point, we don't have the long-term tracking available, but we have the means to do it if we can put the right systems in place. There's a statewide longitudinal data system that's its own conversation for another time that could allow us to see what that looks like in cohort based information. But it's not just as simple as us saying, hey, we'd like you to look at these 3 individuals. Can you tell us where they're at in 5 or 10 years? It's a little bit larger lift than that, unfortunately.
And is the data they're providing you PII or is it just, it is PII?
Yeah. I collect a minimal amount of PII to triangulate within a high certain percentage. that is the youth if we were to put them into a system, but I don't collect much more than that. Because they are youth and because they come in with a lot of story, we're trying not to have every story collected based on data or a program ask an individual, tell me your background. So I ask for the minimum amount and then I look at the program impact at an organizational level. What are you doing for credits? What are you doing for access? What are you doing for this? Because we're not serving the youth, we're serving the organizations who serve the youth.
So do they collect social security information?
We do not collect social security information. We collect name, birth date, zip code, city, and gender, and that's enough to triangulate if we did go down the path of looking for an individual with a DMV or other records that we have access to.
I was thinking, you know.
Yeah, we have, but it's secure transfer information that we opted to go that route versus social security number.
It's really tricky for us to house that information. I mean, there's different offices within the agency or within the agency, like say OSAC, and they're tracking a lot of that. But they've got their own systems that are approved. So for us to gather some of that information and just try to keep it servers, huge like.
Yeah, you don't know. You don't want that responsibility, especially opportunity for, I don't know who, like a community college to throw a question on their admission that says, have you ever been a part of Oregon Youth Corps? You know, an outside partner that could filter some of, give you some kind of data, just to see maybe where they're going or.
Anecdotally, based on a statutory requirement, at least within the education aspect, we were seeing that the height, when I first came on, around 17% of the youth going towards a post-secondary opportunity. And then it just incrementally started dropping and dropping and dropping for like maybe 5-10% anecdotally, but it's not a data that's an accurate number, but that's the number that we're seeing.
But that's not super surprising because it sounds like, I mean, if you're working with the Forest Service, natural resources, those are not necessarily career pathways that require higher ed. I mean, depending on what you're doing.
Depending on what you're doing, yeah. Well, and a lot of these folks are coming in at a very early part of their life that need a lot of support, and this is that first path. And so not necessarily geared with that post-secondary mindset at a very early age.
What is the age, target age for the program?
Target age is 13 to 24. In the paid work program, it's 14 to 24 based on bully. But most organizations based on bully restrictions don't start working until 16.
Yeah.
And are they disconnected youth? Is that one of the requirements or not necessarily?
We do not define what their at-risk is because it's so different, but we provide these categories as kind of guidance to help with their recruitment.
Other question?
Lots. Whatever happened to our, that's what I was trying to research real quick, but the MDS, is that what it was under SICA? The old SICA grant, the State Incentive Cooperative Agreement, we all got trained on it. So all of the risk and protective factors, we were able to really collect our data into one system. I don't know if anybody here remembers that. I'm really aging myself now. But that was back in the early 2000s. It was a 5-year grant. It was called the State Incentive Cooperative Agreement Grant, SICA, and we all had one. And we were all doing the thing with prevention. And we had a trainer that through the whole state trained us. His first name was Jeff. I can't remember his last name, but it was the MDS. But all I'm finding now is medical.
Yeah.
But we were able to put our data in, what we were doing, which prevention activity we were operating in, what age we were operating, and it was nice. And Oregon was really leading edge at that time.
I don't know. I came in at like WIA was brand new when I entered this scene, so that predates me. I have to wonder though if that was run through the, oh my gosh, I can't think of the name of the agency now. It no longer exists, it became Youth Development Oregon. Commission on
Children and Families.
Children, yeah.
Yeah, it was Commission on Children and Families we were working under, and we had to adopt best practices in order to even have a program. So Caroline Cruz, I think I was the third prevention specialist out of the state of Oregon, but we all had to adopt these systems and best practices and all of that. But it was a great data collection system. I've always kind of missed that other places I went.
Yeah.
Because we had that consolidated data in one place.
I'm gonna bring to our focus, we're coming up on 1:40 and we have 2 more presentations before 2:00. Is everybody comfortable doing kind of self-care for bathroom breaks and, okay, and we'll just continue to push forward?
Hey, Jim and Brooke, if I may real quickly. Just introduce Tiffany and say welcome to Tiffany. Tiffany will be working with us later after this afternoon. So just so I wanted to.
So you know who the stranger in the room.
I'm actually early. Okay, so
We're all gonna-
you were just coming in.
We're all gonna watch you eat too, so.
Okay. Try not to distract.
Glad you're here. And I think Robin also joined us online. So Robin, glad that you're with us. Great. And, yeah, lots of questions. Jeremy, great presentation. Thank you. And, I'm gonna shoot you an email. I've got some questions and some opportunities, I think. So,
Always,
good stuff.
always do. That's what I love about you. I'm not saying that in a bad way. That is my favorite part about you. Miranda, are you ready to give us a presentation on Climate Corps?
I think presentation might be a real stretch as far as a noun to describe this, but I think an update. How about an update? That should work for everybody. And Hillary, please feel free to hop in on anything that I'm saying that isn't representative. But we pulled together. So the long short story is that what we were trying to do after learning a little bit about the American Climate Corps through our Oregon Serves and AmeriCorps programs at the Office of Workforce Investments, we saw a need to start trying to align this work a little bit internally. So not just within our Oregon Youth Works programs, but also within our Oregon Serves team. And we started having some initial conversations across the team. And then also engaged, like Jeremy has been involved in these conversations, Hillary has been involved. We brought in Brian Neese, who has been doing some work with our Title I team and has been focusing. We've started to do some industry engagement work in specific sectors within the Office of Workforce Investments. And Brian, every time I say it in a different way. So I'm just going to say climate-related, green energy, renewables, anything that falls into that bucket. Brian has been focusing on that as one of the sectors to learn more about and be engaged in conversations around at the state. So we pulled together those folks and several of our AmeriCorps team members to have some conversations around what does it look like to have internal alignment around these conversations, and what does it look like to bring in folks within both of these portfolios to talk about what the climate work is looking like throughout the state. We have a lot of really wonderful examples from across the country of other AmeriCorps or like state commission programs that have been digging into this work. We met with a whole bunch of states. We met with Colorado. They have a really beautiful example of how to pull in their Conservation Corps programs as well as their AmeriCorps programs to sort of create a suite of like menu options for programs to braid funding and do climate related work. And again, this is very broad. Some of the states do weatherization work on homes. They get funding from like the Department of Energy and things like that. Other states, they're pulling state funds because they have governor-directed initiatives around climate work. So we don't have all of those things. And what we have noticed in just doing a scan of what climate-related work is happening throughout the state, that there are lots of people doing lots of things. So we scheduled a meeting at the beginning of December to pull together. We sent it out to all of our programs from both of those portfolios. We put it on social media. We sent it out to other partners and programs. We put it in our newsletters. And we had I think I'm right in this, Hillary. We had 76 folks who signed up to participate. They registered, so their names were on the list. I think consistently throughout the meeting, we had about 44 folks that were participating in the conversations. And really, we wanted to get some information from them about what is the work that's currently happening? What do you want out of this network? We laid down the law that like we have no funding for this, and thinking about how federal money will probably change within the next couple of years. We don't foresee a lot of money coming from the feds that is related to this type of work. So really what we're trying to do is create a network and elevate the best practices of programs and things that are happening throughout the state. So that was like the baseline of what we shared with folks. And then we did breakout rooms. We had folks from PGE. We had people from PSU who are doing internships for diverse folks in this realm. And they were talking about some of the barriers they have to placing folks in these types of internships and finding them and making sure that there's a readiness level to place people in different kinds of positions. We had many of our programs that came that are doing this work that wanted to share about what they're doing. It was really, really a good conversation. It went by so fast. We met for a quick debrief the other day and like a 30-minute because everybody's schedules are wild, but we were able to just have a few takeaways of where we're going next. And I think one of our first next steps is just to respond to everybody. I think Hillary put in the chat 87 people, which was more than we were anticipating, right? But clearly shows an interest in this work that's happening. And we want to pull people together again. We want to create a kind of like an application so that we have contact information and basic summaries of what this work looks like throughout the state. So then we can start like convening folks regularly based on being responsive to the needs that they're asking to have fulfilled through just having this network. Really, it's about alignment, and it's about just having collective conversations about the work. Hillary, Brian, do you have anything else to add there?
Well, yeah, I felt kind of, as you said, that there was a lot of energy in the room, even more than I for the initial kind of presentation of it. I was really surprised by how interested people were in taking the next step and connecting more. And that was really great. I had one person in my breakout room. She made a comment, and at first it kind of threw me off, but she said, we need more connecting of activism to workforce. And I thought, well, activism? And I thought, yeah, okay, that's what this is. That's what the Climate Corps, that's what they're doing. But I don't think of it that way. You know, they're not out they're out doing the work to make things better within climate. And I thought, yeah, you know, what are these people that are out there doing that? How are they connecting to jobs and employment within the workforce that can take advantage of how they feel and where they want to see things go, but also to do it as a career? And that made a lot of sense to me. And I think this can be a way to make those connections for people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
go ahead, sorry.
I think the one last thing, I don't know if you mentioned it already, but we came into that space as tech staff and said, let's propose quarterly convenings of these people to bring people to the table. And they all asked for like monthly to every other month. So they're really excited about the work and think that it is much like you guys coming into this, right? Like you're like, we need to meet monthly to keep this going, to build the momentum. So we're trying to currently coordinate what those monthly convenings will look like. And then hoping that we could offer something that would be in person at least once a year. So maybe this summer.
I think that's most of it. Oh, go ahead, Belinda, sorry.
We're currently an implementing partner of American Climate Corps, and a recent call to DC this week, advice from DC is that name wasn't agreed upon at that level. So the activism part of it is going to sit well. Yeah. So we're going to have to reframe and rename this effort for funding in the future.
But there's no funding now though, right?
No funding. Well, do you have money, Belinda? That's cool.
partners, which opens you up to that funding. So when DC has funding and you have an agreement with the DOI or USDA, then you're actually able to get funding into your agreement. So it's being an implementing partner of the American Climate Corps. And we actually can use their logo and everything, but it's going to be a thing of the past real soon. And we're being cautioned at the DC level.
Yeah.
To rethink and refrain.
We haven't talked a whole lot internally about the activism part. That came up during our meeting when we convened our friends. And I'm hesitant to lean into that as well, because that may be someone else's agenda, but I think we need to have a more holistic agenda, and that is youth workforce development in this sector, right? What does that look like? How's that defined? Define that a little bit more clearly. One of the things that we found, I should have shared that we gave ourselves an acronym, and it's ORCA, ORCA, Oregon Climate Alliance, because we already have OCC as an acronym. So as we were in this meeting, this lady came in and she's like, I already have ORCA as an acronym, and we're like, yeah, no acronym is safe at this point. And hers has an H on the end. Brian, I can't remember what the H stands for, but she's ORCA.
Hub, yeah.
Hub. There you go. She's a hub. And we really tried hard to scan every single acronym and organization that was doing this. It's all right. We're just going to figure it out. But part of this is trying to be strategic, like Belinda said, that there could be money in the future, and there could be money in the future for us, maybe not through the federal government, but if we have a group of folks that are meeting and we're having conversations about this and we're having aligned efforts around this, there could possibly be, private grants, things like that we could tap into. So while we don't have any funding for it now, there could be potential funding in the future for our partners or for us as a collective. So I don't want to crush that idea. We wanted to be clear that we have no funding associated with it. And really it is about alignment and the network. Any other questions about this? And Hillary did put in the chat the recording of our meeting. And we'll continue to keep you all apprised to what this looks like. I think ultimately the best part about it is that we are doing internal alignment around this, right? We're talking about what it looks like from an industry engagement side. So from Brian's lens, we're talking about it from the youth work side, and then we're also talking about it from the Oregon Serve side. So just seeing these collective conversations happening internally, I feel like is huge step in the right direction as far as progress goes for the office itself.
Any other questions?
Ask Moran to Doug specifically, has there been consideration that we pull in as liaisons to this board, the Career Connected Learning Network and Oregon Employment Department? Because I hear these recurring issues with data, with impacts upon community and economic development, and with all of this being career path oriented, having those now 40 people across the state that are specifically tagged as career connected learning experts, either at a school, a district, an ESD, or a statewide level, having at least one liaison to be able to link those partners at those agencies? Or can we bring it into consideration at some point?
Just a note on that, Jim, that we do have representatives on our team that are kind of like our liaisons for that. Jeremy has specific folks at ODE. I don't think Career Connected Learning is yours. I think that is Stephanie's. Jeremy works with YDO. I work with the CTE folks. Granted, they always have their meetings when we have our department meetings, so I have a hard time attending. But we do have liaisons on our team, but I think it might be helpful to have like someone from that team to come and be the voice. So just wanted to note that we try to stay connected and aligned with some of that work and some of those conversations.
Good, thank you.
And Jim, maybe what I could do too is post the next meeting invite on the CCL forum.
Yeah.
In case anybody's interested in
Yeah,
attending,
great.
see who also is interested and has capacity.
Great, thank you.
Jim had a thought on that. Would it, I noticed it with Jeremy's, it mentioned that almost 20% of the participants that were able to take part had a disability. Would youth voc rehab be?
I think, yes.
I work with them a lot.
Yeah.
And so does Step does with me, but, they're in the same schools, they're in the same areas, and, that's a pretty significant number that are taking part in workforce activities.
I think, yes.
Yeah, let's talk about it. I think
Sure.
one thing I want to be careful of too is making the room too big.
Sure.
We've seen some, just for efficiencies, trying to get that many people in a room can be difficult. But I like what Miranda's saying too, that we do have inside folks that can at least be that link, but let's talk about how we do that at future meetings.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Miranda. Any other questions, folks? For Miranda? All right, Brooke.
Hello, so I'm trying to get my computer to work, of which it's like having me 500 reset my pin, death spiral, I don't know what's happening. So, I've talked about this enough that I'm gonna wing it, and we're gonna see what happens. So maybe, hold on, maybe we'll see if this works. I do not know what is happening with this thing today. IT has been my best friend, these last few days, and my husband works in IT, and he reminds me regularly that he does not work on help desk, which is great. Because he has a personal help desk. The Oregon Clean Energy Workforce, oh, maybe this works. Oh my gosh, good Lord. You will be very happy to know that there are lots of security provisions as it relates to the energy sector. So hopefully that gives you some security. It also means that sometimes I can't actually even get into my own computer. So the Oregon Clean Energy Workforce Coalition, we, at the end of 2021, so Oregon passed House Bill 2021. It was one of the most aggressive climate bills in the country, still is today. It requires the decarbonization of the electric sector. And we started having some conversations with some of our partners about how are we actually going to do this? Because it's one thing to say like, oh, we're going to, build all the new things, but building all the new things requires a lot of people. And then we are at this very monumental piece component of the energy sector in which when I came to the company, people who had done the same job for 45 years were retiring. So like they worked in one of our plants, they want to do the same job for 45 years and they did it and they retired from PGE. That is not the case. So people who start today within the industry, their job will not look the same in 20 years. And so we knew that we had a training issue. We knew that we had a how do you bring people collectively to really start thinking about what we need as an industry issue. The recruitment efforts that we've historically done as companies, like by ourselves, like PG would do our own thing, Pacific Power would do their own thing, et cetera. That stopped working when we started stealing employees from each other pretty regularly, and that's not sustainable. And we knew that we were going to just grow, in terms of the number of people within our industry, we knew that too. And most people, especially when they're younger, kids aren't saying, I want to go work for a utility or I want to go work for a renewable energy developer unless you know somebody in the industry. And if you talk to people in our industry, there are very few people who came to our industry right out of high school or college where they were like, I want to go do that thing. They came to us in a whole variety of different ways. And a lot of it is because I knew somebody, or I ended up meeting somebody. I ended up at PGE because I knew the person who was doing my former job who was retiring, and she mentioned she was retiring. I was like, oh, that'd be a cool job. And we can't build an industry and a workforce that we need to meet the demands of our industry with the like, oh, I know somebody model. So the Oregon Clean Energy Workforce Coalition, our mission is to create an equitable and inclusive clean energy workforce in Oregon. And that is ensuring both that the needs of industry and business are met, and also that the needs of the worker are met. And so if you look at the data, the energy industry generally is a good paying industry. So our wages are higher than the average wages in Oregon. If you look kind of across all industries, but the challenges that we have are, we don't have enough people coming in, especially when you look at the trade side of things. So like our linemen, et cetera, we do not have enough people coming in to meet the number of people who are eligible for retirement and going out. We are seeing challenges now with engineers, which engineers are critical to us doing all the things we need to do. Not to mention all the new jobs that we don't even know exist today. And so the group of folks that we pulled together, we originally started with reaching out to all of our utility partners and our industry partners, like renewable energy developers, to make sure that they were on board. And then once they were like, yep, great idea, then we started expanding the table. So today we have almost 100 different organizations across the state, and that includes the HEC, multiple state agencies, electric utilities, renewable energy developers, workforce boards, community-based organizations, tribes. And our goal is to work collectively to build this framework at the state level. So we're looking at what's working well, what's not working well, how do we collectively build this framework, and then it gets implemented at the local workforce board level. So the local workforce boards know their people, they know their communities, they know their training providers. They are the experts within the regions that they serve. And so they are going to be able to say like, okay, this great new program was done in Portland and Portland did a great job with this. Now we can replicate that same model in Eastern Oregon, and the Eastern Oregon Workforce Board can say, okay, this is the general template. Here's how it needs to be modified for my region, right? Recognizing that's very different than what it is like in Portland, right? Reaching people in Portland, much easier than it is to reach people in Eastern Oregon and the Workforce Board area there, and then implement it there. And we are really looking at how do we reduce costs for folks so that you're not having to do a lot of like trial and error, which is very expensive to set up a program. We're trying to maximize like all these great learnings. We're also doing a lot of pilots. So we're soliciting funding, through grants and other things to say, okay, we're going to try this pilot here. We're going to try it in a rural community and an urban community. We're going to see how it works. And then we're sharing those learnings. And then really importantly, we're bringing kind of everybody together in the education space to start our work in the K through 12 space. So rather than trying to get people's interest once they've graduated from high school or they're in college, we're trying to get them interested much earlier. And so that we're really creating this excitement around what we need to do in the energy sector generally within Oregon. And then here's where you can go. We're developing a website that will be a one-stop shop, and it's really focused on interest versus career pathways. It does lead to a career pathway, but it starts with interest, because most people aren't like, I want to be a wind turbine technician, but somebody may say, I like heights, I like to travel, I want to work with my hands. Well, those are all great qualities for a wind turbine technician, but you may not know that. And so we're really focused on what do you love to do? What are you good at? And then here's how that connects to various different career pathways within the clean energy sector. Here's what you need to do in order to get the education or training required to do that job. Here's who in Oregon hires for that job. And so it's this connected ecosystem where everybody's kind of learning from each other, but also we're really helping to move forward some of these things. I think you guys all can agree with this, that in the workforce space, often there's a lot of talking and sitting around a table to be like, here's the problem, here's the problem, here's the problem, here's the problem. You create this level report and then nothing happens. And when I pulled this together, I promised everybody that was actually not going to be what happened, because I hate being in those tables. So we developed a strategic plan. And that strategic plan has short, medium, and long-term goals for how we want to kind of move the needle forward, working with the Department of Ed on how we're doing pilots within the school districts, so that we're thinking about how are we thinking about talking about clean energy jobs? How does that relate to all the education standards? And then Oregon in general was very successful in winning some of the bipartisan infrastructure law funding. So through several different grants that either PGE was a part of or we won by ourselves, we wrote the Clean Energy Workforce Coalition into those grants. And so we're able to leverage those dollars. So we're developing an education program in partnership with the program at their academy. We are developing some energy mentorship programs in Central Oregon. We're doing some work with Saturday Academy around some summer camps and high school internship programs. And again, really looking at, more rural, more urban, how do you really test out those different things and then bring them to life through other pilots? And then the program that I'm most passionate about is related, it's a partnership with some of our unions at Coffee Creek. It will expand to 2 additional correctional facilities in the state in the coming years. And it is a 12-week apprenticeship program, pre-apprenticeship program with the bricklayers, cement mason, and iron workers. And those are critical crafts related to the clean energy sector. And the women at Coffee Creek go through this 12-week program. You have to be within a year of release, and you have to have a good behavioral record, and they learn all 3 of those crafts. And these women are amazing. They like run with rebar, which is something I couldn't do like ever. And they're so excited about the clean energy sector. And then upon release, they either have preferred entry or direct entry into one of those 3 union programs. So we have seen some really great success stories from that program, and the benefit as an employer is like they are used to a regimented schedule. They're used to showing up on time. They are used to having the ability to do these things that a lot of times when you are bringing, especially the younger generation, into a workplace, they don't have those skills. And these folks have already learned all those skills. And then in addition, there's some classes around financial literacy and some other things that are helping them with the life skill part of it.
They don't have to have their phone in their hand 24.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a big one. I have to have conversations as a manager to be like, I actually don't pay you to be on your phone all day.
Really? Sometimes I feel like I'm paid to be on the phone.
This is true.
Not necessarily the calls I want. So Brooke, have you looked at all at, or have you visited, AYA's solar pre-apprenticeship they're doing down in Charleston?
I've heard about it, but I haven't seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're down that way, I mean, Scott's an interesting guy, let me tell you. He's got a lot of things going with kids, and, one is, this pre-apprenticeship. That is now, he had funding for, which I believe has ended, but it is continuing, and he's getting tuition paid.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll add that to our list. I mean, one of the things that we have funding through one of our grants to do, which one of the people on my team is already well underway, is mapping out all the programs that exist in the state, both from like a training provider perspective, but then also looking at education related programming. So community colleges, and then CTE programming, because there's a lot of things that are already happening that are really good. It's just that I think that most people don't have visibility into what is happening kind of across the board. And our model is that we do not duplicate efforts. So like if something is happening really great in a certain part of the state, we are not going to then work with people to create a duplicating program that does the same thing. We're going to be like, what are the gaps? And then how do we fill in the gaps? So,
and then maybe one of the things to look at with those programs is to find out, have they been registered on the eligible training provider list?
That's a great
apprenticeships are automatic.
Yep.
And that way they could be possibly funded.
Yep, that's a great flag.
Through wheel service providers.
Yep, that's a great idea. And I should know, I'm a chair of a local workforce board, so there's the part of the reason why this uses the model of local workforce boards is because I would be like ousted from my job as chair of a local workforce board. But I also think there's extreme value in really leveraging people who know their local communities. I think a lot of times what happens at the statewide level, when you have a statewide consortium group, whatever, is they are thou shalt do X, Y, and Z, and that's just not work. So.
Are you on Bridget's board?
Yeah. Brian?
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions. Have you in your outreach, getting like you say, getting down to the students, try to get that exposure. Have you been in conversation at all with any of the educational partners on utilizing the UScience data that they're utilizing statewide?
Yes.
Okay.
So Deb Mumhill with Oregon STEM is iHeart that program. And she and I have had many conversations about it.
Okay, well, that was my question, because so part of my job is through the Frontier STEM Hub, and that's where I was like, okay, so who had that connection been made, and where was that going? So my director, I'm sure, is aware of some conversations that way, but I was just curious if that connection had been made, because that definitely seems right up the STEM Hub alleyway. So.
Yes, and I will say that, as we are working with our education providers, we have the Lane ESD involved, we have Portland Public Schools involved. So we have and we have written a grant, unfortunately, that was unsuccessful with a school district in Eastern Oregon. So we're really thinking about how specifically on the education front, we're bringing more education folks to the table to really make sure we're thinking about all the things. The person that on my team that manages our education work is a former teacher. And so she is always like, oh, you need this person, you need this person, you need this person. So that's been a really helpful tool, but always wanting to bring in more people. So if there's people you think should be part of our coalition, we would welcome it.
Yeah, I mean, if you, after this, if you shoot me an email, like I said, for all of Eastern Oregon, there's only 2 STEM hubs. And
Yeah, I will definitely have Ann on my team follow up with you. That'd be great.
yeah, like I said, I work for one of 2, so that would definitely be a conversation. And on the clean energy side, Madera County might be small, but there's some hydroelectric facilities nearby, and we've got geothermal facilities as well. So
Yeah, and I think that is honestly, I mean, when we look at workforce needs, where the energy development will happen is in Central and Eastern Oregon, because that is where the resources are, but the people are not necessarily there in the way that we need them to be there. And so that is one of the biggest challenges is right now you see people coming in from out of state who are helping build these projects. And our goal is that that is not the case, right? That Oregonians are benefiting and building these projects, but we have to work together to actually make sure people are there to do it.
absolutely, yeah, and that was my others, the workforce. So I head up our internship program. So getting the youth into those meaningful careers, getting the job development, working with Aaron Carpenter on that from the workforce board. So
Oh, yeah.
would be, I think, a fruitful conversation.
Yeah, awesome. I will definitely follow up.
Brian, if I'm not mistaken, Jerry Peacock has about 80% of the schools there in U Science. Is that about?
Yeah, he's definitely a U Science evangelist for sure. So he's got to push pretty far and wide. Some districts aren't pushing it, but I know in Madera County, our big 3 schools and a number of the small ones as well are definitely utilizing it, and they've utilized it to great success. I mean, through that data, one of our schools highlighted that didn't have a health science program for CNA, nursing, that side. They did use science and recognized, oh wait, we have a massive cohort of students that have this aptitude. Let's develop a program, and now they're up and running. So yeah, Jerry is. And I work with Jerry on a regular basis, and with John Stroop, who also works for Jerry, and trying to do some stuff over this way.
Very cool. I don't think anybody can be more of an evangelist about it than Deb. So if this person is, then I am very excited. Well, thank you. Like I said, if you guys have interest, want to know more, whatever, feel free to email me and I'm happy to connect you. Okay.
Thank you, Brooke. Thanks to everybody that presented. Apologies that we're a little bit late. Tiffany, may I look to you? Could we do a stand and stretch 5 minutes, starting at 2:15, get the blood moving?
That'd be great, because
Okay.
I'm set up.
Okay, so let's do that. Get your bodies moving, real tight 5 minutes. We got 2:15 folks at home, in 5 minutes. Thanks, everybody.
Careful of this cord right here. Yeah, please, thanks. Does anybody want to see a dog? Where's the dog?
Oh, in my car.
The dog is mad.
Is it a real dog?
Y'all have to come to the car.
I do.
I don't know what your role is. I don't want to overstep. Are you? I'm fine.
So.
You too.
I think, yeah, until 4 o'clock, so you can pace it the way you like to.
Okay.
Are we all ready to gather back?
Yeah.
Oh, please, yeah, we'll adapt. Thanks. All right.
Really good to see some familiar faces and meet some new folks. I'm just gonna introduce myself super quickly. I'm Tiffany Pern and I do, facilitation, but a couple of connection points so you understand maybe what the connection is. I've worked in state government. I worked for Oregon Employment Department for 5 years. I was a learning and development specialist. I'm familiar with the workforce systems, workforce boards, and how the legislature works, things like that. I've also worked with youth in the past, huge love of mine. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Sun Community School System in Portland. Like a lifetime ago, like 20 years ago, I led one of the programs at Clear Creek, loved it so much. It did win a bunch of awards. I just love working with youth, and so I'm just passionate about what you all are passionate about. And I've done a lot of strategic planning, so that's what we're coming in for. So I've worked with a lot of different groups around strategic planning in particular. Anything else you want to know about me?
I'm just gonna check 1 second. Can I get Paula or Robin or Brian to let us know if you can hear us okay? Online? Anybody that's online?
Oh yeah, that's great. Can you?
All good.
Hear?
All right, super. Thank you.
Awesome.
And we might have screen share up, and so please don't hesitate to call out loud if we don't catch it in the chat right away or a hand up. Thanks. Thank you, Tiffany.
Yeah, I really want to make sure you all are included. So I did a little bit of planning ahead this morning and hopefully you've received a document. We've got some strategy for the breakout sessions and all of that. And so if you all have any trip ups with that, let me know. Definitely want to make sure. So the Oregon Youth Works. Oh yeah, any other questions about me or my background or how I'm here? No, okay, good. So the strategic framework, how comfortable are you all with the strategic framework? Like, do you have it memorized? I'm kind of not kidding.
Like you remember was sent to you a few months ago. That's where they are.
So because we're talking everything about what we're gonna do the next couple hours is related to this. I wanted to go over this and I wanted to find a way to make it fun. I created a game out of it. And I think what we're gonna do is keep it simple. We'll do some moving around later, but for now, let's just have like this is gonna be the orange team on this table. This is gonna be a green team. This is gonna be the purple team. And you all.
Phone a friend?
Oh, no, they're a team.
Oh, they're a team.
Prizes for this.
So they're a team, yeah. I have my prizes right here. And so what I'd like to do is give everyone a few minutes to look at it first. 3 to 5 minutes to read it, and I'm gonna ask you to flip it over so that you're not doing it, and then we'll just have fun reviewing, okay? So.
Will you send this over?
Yeah, if they don't have access to it, I have it and I can forward it to you. Do you?
We'll do.
I'll forward it to you.
Which one do you want?
Do it. We're also gonna
Oh, I like how it's. There's 5 of us?
So you can take 5 too. That's your work anyways, right?
Yeah. I'm 4 and 5, so it's 10.
I don't know which one I am in 3. Probably.
Fine, I'll take 1. What do you take?
I'll do 1, you two.
I'll take 2.
1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I'll try and help with that.
I'm gonna do it like a little bit.
Take a picture of it with my phone.
Yeah, I keep
I
changing
hear
that.
competing over there.
Strategize.
Like the commercial, the guy that they ask him something in the board meeting and he wheels out and he does some AI thing and then he goes, okay, let's do it.
Oh, no. For this next little test, I'm just gonna do it from here to make it easier, so you don't need the screen share. I'm glad you found it. Somebody found it, yeah, we're working on that. So, I don't have it up in there.
Since you all are at a disadvantage, I will, you can, view it for first couple minutes, let you view it for the first couple slides and access
They'll
it.
be cheating for sure.
I mean. All right, so one more minute and then we'll dive in. I want to make sure they get it. Like, no, I very cute.
You know, it's okay to, are you able to just pop it into the chat, upload it as well? Sure. Okay, okay. It's just going to be able to. It looks like somebody, it looks like, the brand. That's the head.
Did you request that?
Okay. Have you?
I'll never read it again.
Oh, this, I thought you meant the copy. I think you requested the copy last night and I was like, thank you.
I'll go to practice my own reading.
Sounds like college break.
No, that's the worst idea ever.
Yes.
Oh, I made him copy.
I'll let you know.
Or our meeting center.
I'm going back to bed. It's been real bad.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So for folks who are joining remotely, we're working on it. We're doing the best that we can. I guess this is like an extra test for you all. This is just meant to have fun. We're just having fun with this. So, if you feel like you know the answer, if you're remote, then put a Y.
Turn it over.
I can read.
Don't like your mouth, Brian. Put a Y in the chat. Okay, so let's do a test run. This is how it will work. So, this is just practice. So I'll have a question. How many strategic goals does flip them over. So everybody flipped over. Do not look. Okay. Okay. How many strategic? Go. Oh, there. Okay. How many?
5.
Yes. Okay. Okay, wait, you gotta like rate that. That was not good.
That's why we did a practice run.
That's the only one we'll get.
Yeah.
Very clear. That's the only one we'll get.
I have points for each of these. If you want to keep points for your team, somebody will have to keep points.
I'll keep points for the other teams.
So, first question. And, oh, I need one person who's familiar with this, who's like the judge. If, in case there's a question about whether it's correct enough or not. Do we have
Jim just read it last night.
No, absolutely not. Does that mean he could get pulled off my team?
Yeah, yes, he'd be pulled off.
Yeah, no, then no.
I think Doug should be.
Yeah, I concur, Doug.
Okay.
Yeah, that's.
Doug, you're the ultimate judge. So for 400 points, what is
400?
Yeah, why not? For 400 points, what is Oregon Youth Works vision? And it doesn't have to be word for word, but just generally, what is the vision? All right, what is it?
A highly skilled, work-ready workforce.
Resilient.
Okay. Resilient is in there. Uh-huh. Anybody else? So, 100 points. Anybody else? Anybody else want to have a?
Resilient, youth prepared for the workforce.
Resilient and prepared youth.
So resilient, yes. Youth, yes. Okay. Huh?
Sorry, was I not supposed to?
Oh.
Stronger communities.
Ah,
It's in there.
yeah. And stronger communities. So 200 points, 200 points. Group work. There we go. Oh. But they have, look at this. Did they get it in first?
No, they didn't. They just.
It's not word for word.
Okay. Yeah, they were like. All right.
Nice try.
So the key there is resilience, youth, and communities. All right, next question. 200 points each. So name up to 3 focus areas that are central to the Youth Works mission. So there's a mission. There's central areas that are part of any of them that you can remember that are part of the mission. Yeah.
There was something about equity, diversity and equity.
Okay. Good guess. I don't see that in the actual mission. It's in the strategy. Yeah. Go for it.
I only know one because it's the next doors. It's community engagement.
Yes. So
I only know that one because of that.
Yes, community engagement is part of the mission. Anything
Skill
else?
building? Skill building?
Yes. Okay, 200 points, skill building. And there's one more.
Cultural competency.
Ooh, great guess. You know.
Wow.
And so 200 to the remote group, it is individual group. Okay, remote group, now you need to put yours away. No more copying and pasting. So, the mission is cultivating programs that advance skill building, community engagement, and individual growth. So there's a combination of the individual and the community. And I just want to call out that the community is in the vision and the mission. So really central to all of the work. All right. So next one, 200 points each, or 200 points, sorry. Name one initiative under the goal of promoting talent, diversity, and inclusion across workforce sector. You're on, your team's on. Do you have any guesses? Okay.
Eliminate barriers to
access
or something.
Yeah, it was like word for word. I want to come back to you.
The only one I like.
Word for word, eliminating barriers and disparities to access. There we've got equity and access in the very first focus area. Do y'all want to take a stab at another one?
Cultural competencies.
Yes. Yes. So expanding cultural competence, understanding, and training delivery. So 200, 200.
Nice job.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
That was brutal. I think I hurt his hand on that.
There is also, there's also support a broad spectrum of programs internally and build partnerships that amplify the reach and impact of inclusive youth and young adult experiences. So
I'm going on to you guys because that was my goal, folks.
all right, so 200 points. What is one way Oregon Youth Works fosters collaborative community engagement? I heard you first.
Evaluate effectiveness and outcomes of collaborative initiatives.
Word for word, impressive. And then we have advanced, so.
Include diverse perspectives.
Yes, include diverse, so 200, 200.
Is that actually?
So by including diverse perspectives. And then encouraging impactful, equitable initiatives through collaborative community efforts. So not being siloed, right? It's all about coming together and bringing people together in collaboration and making sure that multiple people are involved. So
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
word for word.
There are extra 50 points in there.
All right. So, what is Oregon Youth Works evaluating in collaborative initiatives?
Business and industry skills for the workforce.
Oh, I love it. Great answer. Not correct. It's actually already been said. That's a little hint.
Oh.
What are they evaluating?
Effectiveness.
Engagement.
Ooh. Yeah. Are we gonna? You didn't use the green buzzer. I'm gonna give it to you though. So yes.
We have a judge.
Judge, what did you say?
It's just aching to swing the gavel.
Yeah. All right. 300 for you all. Encouraging collaboration. Beautiful. Love it. 100 for you all. Good answers. Okay. So it's about collaboration, but then also are the collaborations effective? Are we doing things more effectively? Are we getting outcomes? Are we just sitting in meetings and talking, or do we see the outcomes based on the collaboration? All right. What system does Oregon Youth Works use to inform its programming for business and industry needs?
Can you say that again?
What existing system does Oregon Youth Works use to inform its programming for business and industry needs? Oh, that was so close. Okay,
Yeah, collaborative partnerships.
Within the workforce. Connected, yes, it's a little bit more specific than that.
I was gonna say industry consortia partnerships.
Almost. Workforce partnerships. Yeah, I think that probably is the closest. It is the existing workforce system. So there is an existing state workforce system that we are tapping into.
And they have it on the screen now.
Oh, yeah. Okay, you all get the 400. So virtual folks get 100.
It's like an online rebel.
Okay, so name one type of credential Oregon Youth Works promotes for young adults. What kind of credential? Yes.
Employability skills.
Mhm. Connected to that, yes. It's a specific credential, yes.
Work readiness?
I think so.
Other WRC.
Yeah, I think that's close enough. Yes, correct. So 350 job ready credentials, work readiness credentials, job ready credentials. Oh, that's really specific. Job. Are you all cheating? So yay, it's gold stars. Okay. 450 points. We have two more. What is one formal way named in the strategy that Oregon Youth Works involves young people in their own growth.
It's youth development, isn't it?
Yeah, it's connected to that. Can you say any more? It is.
Like mentor or no, wait, what is it? It's, oh my God, this is so like, oh my God, like youth development, mentoring, like positive reinforcement. I don't know.
Great, you're on the right track. Okay, purple team.
I don't know, somebody told me to hit the button, I didn't.
Brian, you hit the button and you look at my list.
First, when I hit the button, they'll look at me.
So
Positive youth development.
okay, great. Well, good. We'll go with that. It is a formal way that we're involving folks in their own growth. What I was looking for is individual development plans.
So kind of put it in there. It just says development plan, doesn't say.
Yeah.
Yeah, co-create individual development plans. So it's a strategy for bringing youth in so that they have a voice, basically, right? In where they're developing and how they're developing. So.
Cheaters got it.
I didn't cheat, I swear.
Even if they can do what I do when I testify in front of the legislature virtually, you bring it over.
No, go ahead.
I want to know when we go to testify, can we take these with us? Senator, representative.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Hush. My turn to speak. It's my turn to speak.
So this will be really quick. This is just true or false. So whoever's on it first, true or false. Oregon Youth Works focuses only on federal funding opportunities.
Oh, everybody sing together.
Okay. 300 right here. Okay, and the last one. Name two strategies Oregon Youth Works uses then to fund the programs sustainably. So not just federal, but what are two strategies that we use to fund sustainably? Yes. Yeah. Yes. So you have 300. Okay. That's correct. So it is leveraging federal opportunities. Is one option, and then increasing public-private partners. And we're going to come back to this because we're going to have a little discussion around funding. So not just federal. Okay. Do we feel more familiar with the strategic plan?
I feel like I need to read it.
The winner is.
Who's the winner? How many points did you get? Did anyone track it?
Only staff.
Did anyone track points?
We didn't.
Okay, so then everybody is a winner. Here's the afternoon.
Those lovely.
Did you look these people?
I'm so, I ate a big cookie this week, so I'm not.
Give it to the.
We're gonna give it to the.
Give it to the board.
Yeah, we wanna make sure that-
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for playing. All right. All right, so what we're doing today, in the next little section is try to think forward a little bit. This is actually a really important time based on state funding. I'll have a slide in a second to show why, but state funding, and I know we're talking about a lot of different funding cycles, but state funding happens like now for 2025 to 2027. So there's actually some urgency around having your input around what's important, what kind of success are we looking for. So if we start to imagine what would 2027 look like, what kind of success is important to us, and then what kind of data is going to be connected to that to be able to track our success in our outcomes. So that's the focus for the next hour and a half. And walk through it in a couple different activities, discussions, I guess, more than activities. So So I just want to start off with, why measure success? It's a real question. It's working. Yeah. Has anyone had the opportunity yet? Like, if you haven't looked at it, don't worry about it. But has anyone seen the data sheet that has been shared out? So there's a bunch of data. Okay, don't worry about it if you haven't seen it. I just wanted to get a sense of whether folks have seen it yet. Can you send that out? Yeah. It's the back. It's on the back. Yeah.
Are you talking about the Kroger spreadsheets?
Yeah. Can you see that? So this is why I wanted to share why the thinking and feedback that we get today is really important. So I'm sure folks are familiar with this. Of course, we're talking about all sorts of different funding streams. But if we talk about the state, we have the 2023 to 2025 biennium, in the way of 2025 to 2027. And the policy option packages is where we present information to the state is right here. So right at the end of 2024 or the beginning of 2025, like summer, January. So any requests that are going in to the state legislature, here's what we're working towards, here's what's important, here's what we want to see in 2027. Those discussions and those decisions are happening right now. Anybody who's really familiar with this want to add anything to that?
So for right now, I mean, yes, it's accurate. But as far as our agency is concerned, our ship is sailing. So those are going to be debated and start to be debated during the session. But at this point, they've been determined.
But there are other bills that could get being introduced during the legislative session. It just wouldn't be.
The short, the special sessions. The session starts before the way through January, runs through June.
So what I want to do is start a bit high level and think about what all would you like to see? What kind of outcomes are the most important? And I'm just to have some continuity, so we're all talking about the same thing. Let's just pretend we're talking about 2027. What kind of outcomes do we really want to be seeing? So to go back to this, to reference the strategy, a couple of places where we have outcomes built in. So we've got invest in, we have ensure young people have access to these development plans. How do we track that? How do we know if we're successful? Medium difficult, probably ideas for doing that. Eliminate barriers and disparities to access. Yes, absolutely. And what does that actually look like? Like, how would we know if we're being successful at that or not? We might want to get some ideas around, what would that actually be? Evaluating the effectiveness and outcomes of collaborative initiatives. We already know we're doing that. It's going to be part of what happens, but do we know when? Do we know how? Do we know exactly what we're looking for when we say effective? What or impacts? What are we looking for? Attainment of job-ready credentials and essential employability skills prevalent within all programs. That's easy in terms of being specific and understandable, but do we have the data to back it? Are we going to be tracking the data that we need? So we'll be talking about that. This is making sense. So spending a little bit of time thinking about what exactly does being successful look like and what is important. So what I'd like to do is mix up, I don't want to like move people just to move people, but I do want to mix up people who work within OE with people who don't, so that there's a mixture of different perspectives, if that's okay. And so everybody who works within the OE can do raise your hands. Is it you two before? Okay, so you'll be part of this next group, so you'll you'll be part of that next group. So let's do three groups and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's 2 of you. So the 2 of you and the 2 of you. And then you 2, and you 2, and you 2, and you 2. Okay. So move if you need to. They're all going to be in a group. Yeah, and I've sent them instructions. So it's not a lot of time. So it's going to move pretty quickly, about 20 minutes. Talk with your group and think about what kind of successes are most important. Come up with no more than 5. So chat a little bit. What do you want to see? And I have flip chart paper, pens, and I love it if you would take the top 5 and put them on a piece of flip chart paper. So I'll hand those out.
What successes are most important? What do we want to see?
Yeah, successes, outcomes, either of those. Some people really like data. Great. If you're someone who thinks in pictures and you want to draw a picture that represents what success looks like, feel free to get creative. Should we shake it up, hopefully?
Success are most important.
Yes, please.
So 5 of the top ones on struggle with my wife makes most of which is looking we're taking a snapshot. This is what we talked about. This is what you need. This is what somebody said about you. This is what you about yourselves. And it's challenging.
Can folks online hear me?
Yes.
Hopefully.
Yes.
It's just online.
Okay, but you don't even.
Put the arrow that's down. It's just mute yours.
So they're paying to train.
Your speaker. Correct.
Maybe place.
Okay. Good. Hello? Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Hello, hello?
Hello.
Okay, great. Okay, great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Sorry, the complications. Tiffany says you guys were sent instructions. Is this true?
Is this after the trivia game, the activity instruction?
Correct. We are in the discussion for measuring success.
So I apologize. Was it just me or did it get really, really like garbled for the last like 10 minutes on the audio?
It was the same for me.
Okay.
Me too.
Yeah, it was super clear, and then they did the group activity, and then I don't know if like the owl got overwhelmed, but yeah, it went from really clear to like I can't hear anything.
I'm sorry. That's my suspicion that the owl got overwhelmed by all of the things. So let's let me just recenter us then in what our activity is. Do you guys still have that document available that talked about the framework?
The strategic framework?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. And then let me share my screen. So I'm going to minimize you guys. So this is the point that I understand that we are at right now. So I've been asked to record our group's input of what kind of success is the most important to record. So thinking about what our framework says, what from there could we take that's measurable and that we need to record in order to like report on our success.
Gotcha.
Like, are we discussing that right now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll take notes for us.
So right now we're talking about the discussion on the tracking or the measuring.
The measuring.
Oh, so sorry.
No, it's okay. So what kind of success is the most important to record? Up to 5 we could have. So 1, 2.
Okay. One of the things that I have found that's really great, just like within my agency that I work for, is the impact that it has. So we have a full impact survey and it measures resiliency. I'm gonna pull it up because I all of a sudden just forgot. Isn't that
And is this
just
impact
sad?
on the community or on the
On
individual
the-
participants?
On the individual participant. I'm gonna grab it right now. I have to get into my computer. Jeez.
I'll say, and that was kind of my first one too, was so my focus being an internship program, right? One of the biggest ones, the participant impact. So for us, it was seeing improved skill development, ability to gain or to secure gainful employment, confidence in their newfound abilities, things like that is some of the stuff that we measure that shows, okay, did we actually make a change in the life of the individual that we worked with?
And Brian, what was the first one that you said?
I don't remember.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were reading off of a thing. Okay.
No.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, skill development. That's what it was.
Okay, so these are sorry, Brian, are you done? I'm sorry. I just totally
all done.
interrupted.
Yeah.
Okay, so the ones that we have when we do the impact survey is okay. Sorry. This is like, so we have capacity, hope, lifelong learning, resilience, and satisfaction.
Capacity, hope, resiliency, lifelong learning, and satisfaction.
Yes.
And so you are looking for narrative responses in those surveys?
So
Oh.
right now, how we have it is rank well, yeah, I guess rank from strongly disagree to strongly agree. So we have strongly disagree, neutral, agree, and strongly agree. And usually what we do is if anybody as we're taking it, or if any of the kiddos want to add anything, there's a spot for notes. Either the student or client can take the survey on their own, and write little notes that they want to write. It doesn't usually happen because we're working with teenagers and kiddos. And they're like, I do not want to do more. But sometimes I do do the conduct the survey with the kids, and they have me read the questions because sometimes it's a little bit easier for them. And I always ask, is there anything you want to add? And they'll sometimes add like the thing that stood out to them, whether it was, I just really appreciate, the youth outreach worker being there every day at the school. Or if it was, I really appreciate the opportunity of being able to work during the summer through OICC, just stuff like that. And then they'll name like specific things that happened that they really liked. So it's kind of nice because we do sometimes get narratives. So that's kind of cool.
Okay. And then do you do a like entry survey and an exit survey, or is this only something done once?
So just depending. So if it's during the school year, when you do your first impact survey, and then we do it again in 6 months to see what the difference is, if things are getting better. If it's during the summer, we'll do it at the very beginning when they first start with the job, and then we'll do it at the very end on the last day. And to see that, it's a lot shorter period of time. But so we do it every 6 months. So if we get like freshmen, we'll do it every 6 months. But if we get a kiddo that, comes into the school year in February, we're still going to do it at the end of school, even if it's a small amount of time. You never know.
And Brian, do you suggest the same kind of like a frequency?
Yeah, it depends on the programming. So ours is it's a 9-week post-graduation internship. So we do a single retrospective at the end of the program. We did a before and after, but what we noticed is that it actually lowered the scores because the students coming in think they know more than they do. And then after they learn, they go, oh, hey, wait a minute, I didn't actually know that. So there's an artificial bump on what we saw if you do the intro and the exit. So we did a full retrospective going, oh, hey, I thought I knew that, but I didn't actually. So we do a single retrospective, and then we are actually pushing out we partner with Oregon State University, their extension office here. So we're actually pushing out a follow-up for all of our previous interns. So 1, 2, 3, 4 years ago to see, okay, what's that follow-up been over the last however long? And has that been maintained? So that long-term success based on the work.
Cool.
Yeah, my program works with youth with disabilities as well as adults. And so I would like to see that they are assured that they receive accommodations so that they can adequately participate in the programs.
Is that something that you see as putting in the impact or putting in a success? Like that everybody's offered accommodations to participate?
Oh, wow. Well, not everybody needs accommodations, but everybody has needs. It talks in the initial part about reducing or eliminating barriers and disparities. So I would want people to be to meet them where they're at so that they, folks who are homeless can find housing, people can get food, health insurance, accommodations, eliminating those barriers, because those certainly become barriers to participating in these programs and having success. And I would also like to see these things measured by by the demographics of the participants.
We kind of mirror the same. We do a breakdown evaluating barriers to entry, basically what you're talking about, to see as far as like a measure of success or measure of engagement is with the students that we're engaging with, are we eliminating those barriers, and the ones that we're not engaging with, what's the right reason why? Is it a barrier to entry, or is it other opportunity? And measure success based off of that. Are we eliminating those barriers, or are they still prevalent enough such that students can't participate?
Yeah. And another thing that this doesn't talk about is working off of the strengths of the individuals, acknowledging the strengths of the individuals and using those.
That's a great point. How
It's pretty oriented towards looking at negative things, and everybody has strengths that they bring in.
Nice.
Ashley, will we get copies of everybody's notes about this?
I think you're asking Ashley, who's in the whole room.
Oh
But
my
I
gosh,
am
sorry.
Hillary. That's okay. I'm Hillary.
Hillary,
and
I'm sorry. I don't know why I said
no,
that.
no, Paula, you're totally fine. I think what they're doing in there is making notes on like big Post-it notes.
Oh, okay.
So what we'll do is take pictures of them and then share them with you guys.
Cool.
Hopefully Ashley will transcribe them so they're easier for folks that have reading impairments. So
thanks.
That is
So
my
we're
hope.
not going to get to use a whiteboard here and put up our thoughts. I'm just
I'm
kidding.
sorry. Yeah. What else do we need to measure? What kind of success?
I don't know if this is technically a way to measure, but documentation of, so we document and we set goals with our kiddos, depending on like what we're doing. So if it's during the school year, usually we use our documentation, we use GIRP, which is a goal, intervention, progress, and response. And then as we're going through those steps to reach the goal with the client student, you can kind of see the change, or maybe like the small step towards the bigger goal.
Yeah.
But that's kind of another way that kind of determines if the kiddo, because we have like, the way we also measure is we have like a tier system, depending on intensive, moderate, and low. And that can determine if we can, they're intensive, they're doing so much better, we're going to bring them down to moderate. That's kind of another way we can kind of see that they're doing a little bit better, depending on like goals and stuff.
I like that. If we're thinking about this as something that like the state is trying to measure, or like the board is trying to be able to report on.
Yeah.
I think it is important to be able to speak to, we are helping individual participants achieve their specific goals. But how do we report that? How do you think
I feel
would
like
capture?
Oh man.
You don't have to have the answer. It was just,
I just think that like, yeah, it is really right, because I think that there's I think Jeremy was talking about it, and I know I've talked to Jeremy about it too, where they're not just numbers. These are individuals who have each a story. I understand why we have the numbers, because this is how we're going to get money, right? People hold the money. We need to do what we need to do. But these clients and kids, they're not numbers. They have their reasons, and they have a story behind why they're doing what they're doing with all of us and any other programs. So I think that, yeah, it's a pain in the butt to probably do every individual, but I think that we should try to collaborate and find a way to do that, because I think that will definitely speak of really truly what programs are doing, even more than what we already are, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. I think they're bringing us back.
Okay. You're muted.
Not anymore.
Okay, if everything went to, like, worked beautifully, and we could set things up the way we really wanted to, what are we working towards? So with that in mind, I would love to just hear from one representative from each group who will share. And then keep an ear out for potential ideas that maybe you all didn't come up with in your group, but that also sound interesting. So just keep an ear open for that. Who would like to start?
We'll start in the back.
Okay.
Our focus was on baseline data. That is the theme of our whole goals is we can't track anything if we don't have baseline data. So our first one was around baseline data for which programs are delivering and evaluating essential employability skills today. And then kind of at a higher level, longer term goal, who's the organization or what does that look like in terms of who certifies that somebody has received those essential employability skills? Because somebody saying they've gone through training doesn't necessarily mean that they actually have those skills. So figuring out kind of what that looks like. The second one is around establishing a baseline of what individual development plans are seeking. And this is really to help inform future programming. So looking across the state with organizations that do individual development plans, you know, are 70% of the people looking for workforce support and 20% looking for, you know, rental assistance or basic services or whatever, which then will help inform kind of programming and grant making in the future. And then the last one was around establishing a baseline for all the youth programming available in the state, broken down by county. And in part, this helps with the gaps analysis of what's missing within an individual county. It also helps when the HEC is doing grant making, that if you have a new organization that's coming, that they're providing a service that 5 other organizations within the county are already providing, maybe that's not the one we fund. And instead we look at funding one of those 5 who's already doing that.
Great. So if I just want to make sure I'm tracking this. So if we look at what all that data would then give you, what I was hearing was one, you're tracking success around essential employability skills.
Yep.
So that's really important. Like are we tracking it? Is it working? Are we getting what we want?
Yep.
I also heard individual development plans.
Mm-hmm.
So that as a key indicator of success, would like the number of youth who have an individual development plan, or is it
Yeah, it's
around
more about like what is in them?
equality?
Right? Yeah, like I think it's the actual like subject itself. Like we need to know what the individual development plans are looking to do, because they can be different based on the individual.
And then what does that give you? If you have that data, what does it then give you?
It allows to, for grant making and programming, right? So if you have 70% of people who need workforce support, then theoretically, your grant making should support 70% being going towards supporting workforce related things. And then if you need 30% of something else, you're looking at who can provide that support for that 30%, because you don't have the holistic view, right?
Okay.
Somebody can't be a productive employee if they have the workforce training, but they don't have a house.
Okay, so they give a holistic view. Awesome. And then on the third one, what I was hearing was really equitability around, and I don't mean equitability in the way that equity is often, but equitability around funding, meaning that there's not major gaps, meaning there's not a group of people out in this part of Oregon that are getting nothing when everybody's getting something over here. So that kind of like equitable funding, is that accurate?
Yes, and not funding new programs to duplicate what's already happening.
Okay, so being really intentional about intentional and equitable funding.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you. Who's next?
We can go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we're from the slow side of the room because that was not what we focused on. We focused on what we think is most important for them to have.
Great. That was the question. That was the question. Yeah.
Go ahead.
These are both great.
So yeah, we kind of talked about things like having work-ready soft skills that can be available, looking at team and crew culture. So things about like how you work with others. Are you are you there on time? Are you respectful of your leaders and such? Just kind of establishing that kind of social component to it. Talked about things like industry recognized credentials, so making sure that they are getting the right kind of credentials and learnings going into the workplace, kind of beyond these programs. Looking at things like life skills. What are they kind of learning in these? Like, are they learning things about like financial literacy? Are they learning, again, some of these more kind of social based things, how to be in a crew, how to work with coworkers, how, these different dynamics kind of interplay with each other. More things around that, looking at career exploration and advancement. So kind of going in with that personal development plan, and seeing like what things are out there. What do you get exposure to? Ashley, was it your story you were sharing about having like 3 different things you got to see and like?
Oh, yeah, just joining like the conservation corps and I tried
Yeah.
the construction crew, I tried the kitchen crew, I tried the spike backcountry crew. And kind of get a feel for, okay, I don't like working in the kitchen, not a fan of construction, but working in the mountains is cool. So you kind of get that opportunity to see what you like.
So just that
And you don't-
exposure to other industries and careers.
Yeah.
But it also gives you a newfound respect for those industries
Mhm.
when you actually work in them. So-
Yeah, doing it is differently than like reading about it in a classroom. Right?
And even if you learn that you don't like it, you can appreciate the work that's done.
Yeah, because you might find that one aspect of that job that you like.
Yeah. And sometimes also knowing what we don't want is very edifying. Yeah.
Right. And then, our last one we talked about was cultural agility. And then an example Linda brought up, it was Burns and what was the?
Burns, the east side and Ashland. So we have cultural collisions all the time.
Yes.
Joking and the way we talk and all of
Yeah.
that. So you have to be really sensitive. And cultural agility is just doing that dance of diplomacy that Doug so gracefully does all the time and keeps working with both sides of the aisle and all kinds of personalities.
Yeah. Working collaboration across difference as opposed to feeding more of the divide, right? Yeah. Beautiful.
Our organization calls it the radical middle.
Love it. I love that. I love that. I love that. I want to be part of the radical middle. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Let's let online go.
Great. How about you all? Do you have a spokesperson who'd be willing to share?
Hold on. I can just. One second. Can I do this?
Oh, I might have turned this way down. I think I did.
See that? Okay. Yep. So since we don't have a poster, you guys get this Word document. Some of the stuff that our group talked about was measuring participant impact. So could be done through surveys or an assessment, but measuring things like resiliency, confidence, employability, skill development, their capacity, hope, lifelong learning, and satisfaction. We talked about some of the ways that's logistically done, ranking things on a scale of 1 to 5 was strongly agree versus strongly disagree. You can do these as pre and post experience opportunities, or you can do them regularly throughout their experience, or you can do like a post-assessment retrospective that really sees like, okay, from the time I started this to now, do I feel more confident in my ability to do this skill, for example. And then they could also follow up years after the fact. We also talked about addressing needs to encourage inclusive engagement and eliminate barriers to entry. Measuring demographics of those people that participate and to see who we are currently serving, and to also assess who are we currently not serving and are there barriers that are prohibiting their participation or inhibiting their participation. And then also as part of that, we need to be mindful to foil or mirror. It's not just a deficit based, it's also a strength based. So we're not trying to only focus on the barriers that people have as they enter our programs, but to lift up their strengths and amplify those, and help bolster those throughout their experience as well. And then we also talked about individual participant goals. This is something that each of it's similar to, an individual development plan, but really letting those participants guide what their goals are, their participation. And then we kind of got into I threw out the question of how do we do that from a state perspective. So again, it's hard to report numbers when you really want to share about stories and the actual influence that these programs have on these real people, not just a number.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
My group, anything else you want to add?
Okay, so for the sake of time, I'm going to keep moving, but I want to recap really quickly what I think I heard is success really looks like inclusive engagement. And you have some really awesome specific ideas about how you would measure that. Individual impact and a whole bunch of what that exactly looks like. That clarity is really great around if we're talking about individual impact, what exactly are we talking about? So I love seeing that list. And then individual development plans. So what I was really hearing was a kind of a youth empowerment piece. So maybe just not that it's foisted upon them, but they have a voice and some choice around how that's developed. So is that line? Okay, great. Awesome.
First?
Yeah.
Okay. Can I do a shout out, Online Rebels? I love that there's this idea of doing an assessment, an intake assessment of people's social emotional readiness and skill readiness, because it is so often it's after they've been in and we don't remember kind of where we started. That's great.
Baseline.
We'll go over the task. Baseline. It's my OCD. I misaligned a kitchen island once in a remodel by 1/32 of an inch.
Oh my God.
It cost me $22,000 to fix it. So is that straight? Like our strategic plan, 4 major elements with lots of bullets. So really fast. Job readiness. We'd like to see, field, find, capture the data on job readiness, awareness of the workforce system, technical skills, employability skills, and social emotional skills. Doug, would you mind sharing really quick?
On which part of it?
The legislators being impacted by?
Oh, by the stories. I just had shared that when Lomakatsi brought up the young people to testify during session, everybody else, I mean, we had our numbers, we had our data, we talked, but it was really their presence telling their story and letting it be real. And I mean, there was applause during a hearing, which is a complete.
Never happened, ever.
They got their picture taken with the committee. It was really impactful. So hearing that story.
So my programmatic system building geeky self, and I think you all are feeling it too, is like, it's not just a workforce readiness system, it's a life-saving system for a lot of human beings, right? Placement systems. So an individual and our state agencies and partners having an understanding of the workforce system in totality. So that person in our programs and those programs supporting them really understand the workforce system. Business and industry engagement with a readiness intake process so that they are ready for that graduate or that person leaving that program to come into their system. So it's an HR idea, right? 6, 12, 18 months post-experience graduation tracking. So we should keep coming back to them. And I think there's a lot of studies that will show us and I can reflect upon, it's from graduation to 18 months, that constancy of care is what leads to permanent employment. Storytelling ability, universal data points, hours, basic demographics, wages and salary, how the story impacts the community, the career progression, data driven and also anecdotal has been noted. And then what is the progression into post-secondary education and training? So some will go straight into workforce. Others may want to go do an enhanced education training profile. What is our return on investment? I am really obsessed right now with the what if. What if these young persons were not in our programs? What would our costs be on our system if they were out there without us? And what if we were without them? What are we saving in terms of long-term investment by investing in them now? It's the preschool quotient, right? Exactly. And then transition into industry or career. And then debt waived and saved. And would you do your quick example of debt waived and saved with working and getting the
Somebody else.
I don't know if I can. Like, do you mean when I was talking about, like AmeriCorps? Yeah. So, one of the things that I've noticed in just different programs that I've been involved in is that I've had like partnerships where AmeriCorps has been involved and some where, they haven't been involved. And to a college student, even though AmeriCorps is not about this, they look at, oh, I could make $11 an hour if I do this program, or if I do this other program with this guy, I could get $19 or $20 an hour. And let's face it, Bend is not a cheap place to live. So it's more attractive and more equitable. I think if all the programs that I offer across the board are paying the same. So, I do get more people that are interested in getting $19 an hour versus 11.
Looking at pay. Awesome. Thank you. Oh, this is great. So we're gonna just stay with your groups. We're gonna stay with this whole thing and we'll just go one more step. So just to the next step, so to tee up the next step. Yes, if you're willing to share the slides. So just a really very quick introduction to the data. You all clearly know if we can't track something, if we don't have the data or the story, then it can be hard to make a case for something. Grants, funding, all the things. Not working for me. Sorry. So, yeah. So for the next section, and this again will go pretty quick, but what I did is I printed out all of the data. I tried to make it a little bit easier by I highlighted. It is a lot of information. You're not going to be able to go into this level of detail in 10 minutes, obviously. But what I did is I highlighted everything where there's a no. So if something is there, so you can see here, this is a program identifier. There's not too much yellow. That means we actually have a lot of this data. We're tracking a lot of this. But let's say we go to, here's one, pathways. And here, I'm just hoping it's a little bit easier to see, like, here, there's these four pathways where we don't have the data yet. And so the question is this really important? Is the program pathways data really important? If so, let's call that out. And if we're not tracking it, let's say, hey, we want to be tracking this. Make sense? So here's just making sure we're all on the same page around connecting data to success and outcomes. Let's say we are eliminating barriers and disparities to access. Lots and lots and lots of things we could be looking at. So many things. You could have 50 data points, but what do we do with a lot of data if we don't, you know what I mean?
If we don't do.
Then people get overwhelmed, we have cognitive overload and we're just like, So we might want to pick, and this is not my personal opinion, I'm just throwing examples up here. So maybe we say eliminating barriers and disparities to access. We really want to make sure that we're tracking the number of people who are experiencing less economic hardship. We really want to make sure we're tracking how many people in rural areas are now included. How many communities of color weren't included and are now included after these 3 years? How many youth within the child welfare and foster care system are now involved? We can't do everything, but we feel like these 4 things are really critical to saying we've been successful. Another example, attainment of job-ready credentials. Let's say, okay, that's super, super important. So we really need to be tracking high school credits, GED, high school equivalency, and certificates earned. That was a little bit more straightforward, right? Any questions or comments about these and how these connect?
One of the things I have, just a question, maybe a comment too, is are we tracking the all the folks that come into the programs, like say I have 60 applicants and I can only hire 20. Are we tracking that number? Is the state of Oregon tracking that number? Like how many people?
Totally. I think we capture that information from certain providers.
Yeah.
I mean, Wilmacotty keeps track of that.
Well, I was even thinking of for our mentoring program down in the Road Basin, and I remember having all kinds of applications and not enough mentors. So, I mean, I'd get 80 applications of young men and young women that wanted mentors, and I didn't have enough adult mentors. But all those applications I would talk as that unmet need.
That's a great question, and that is exactly the question I think we want to have in the smaller groups. Is that okay? Sorry, do you want to? You didn't get the answer you wanted?
That's fine.
Okay.
I mean, I just want to know because I think
That's exactly the right question.
Number for
Yes.
Oregon.
Yes.
And we should probably track that.
Okay, great. So that's a perfect segue. So that is exactly what we'll want is, let's see if we can move one more slide. Oh, just really quickly before I go to the directions. These are the categories. They should be on your sheet, but these are the categories of information, just high level. So tracking program information, individual identifiers, so about the individual, access and opportunity, community. And if you are interested in community, you can look and see what that means in terms of the data, what kind of skill development is being offered, what kind of sector pathways are working within, and then where is the money getting spent.
So you want us to identify what data do we want under each of these categories?
So I'd love for you all to look at, you've had your top 5. Do you have any adjustments to your top 5? Were you convinced by anything else that somebody else in another group said and you want to pull that in as something that's really important as a success? Take a quick look at what data is being captured and which isn't, and see if there's data that is not being captured that is going to be critical to tracking the success that you want to track, and put that on a separate flip chart paper. Up to 10, no more than 10. So if you say it's really, really important that we're tracking this, that's one of your 10 that you put on the flip chart paper. I want to see this data getting captured.
All right, so even from the existing stuff that is being tracked, very important question.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So from everything on here, you want our to take their top 10.
Yeah.
And the virtual people have this in place.
I'm going to send it to you right now.
Oh, shoot.
It is, I do already have it. They do, probably was already, it was already set. And then the only thing I have is one that's set. But they should actually have more everywhere. Later today, but I'll send it to you again.
Some of the issue, there's some information on the grid, like, waste of electricity. So.
Like you want that, but
Yeah.
It's not.
So I'll send us to a group.
Just one big database.
So I don't have one of these arms.
Pretty sleep.
So the categories are.
He's putting us into our room now. And you can eat in there.